Doom does not tolerate failure. The most feared name in the Marvel Universe belongs to a genius who combines science, sorcery, and an iron will to rule. Victor Von Doom, a man so brilliant he's defeated gods, so powerful he's held the universe in his grasp, and so complex that even heroes acknowledge his twisted honor. Today, we're diving deep into the mind and might of Marvel's greatest villain. This is the man who declares, "All will kneel before Doom," and discover why even his enemies respect the ruler of Latveria.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The darkness of the abandoned laboratory felt fitting to the boy who stood in its center. 10-year-old Izuku Midoriya gazed at the corroded equipment, the forgotten machines, the dusty notebooks. This had once been his father's workplace, before the accident. Accident. The word tasted bitter in his mind. 3 years had passed since his parents' deaths in what authorities called a quirk malfunction incident. His mother and father found dead among scorched equipment and shattered glass. The official report claimed his father's fire-breathing quirk had somehow catastrophically interacted with an experiment. His mother had simply been in the wrong place. Izuku knew better. Even at 7 years old, he'd known it was no accident. But no one listened to a quirkless child. Now, as he traced his fingers along his father's old workbench, memories flickered in his mind. Not his own memories, but something older, deeper. Images of a distant castle, of metal masks and green cloaks, of power. Richards, he whispered, though he didn't know why the name came to his lips. Izuku shook his head. These strange visions had been increasing since his parents' deaths. Dreams of another life, another world. A world where no, not him, someone else, had commanded respect and fear through sheer will and intellect. He reached the center of the lab, where a crude circle had been drawn. His father's final experiment? Izuku didn't know, but something compelled him to step inside it. The moment he did, pain lanced through his skull. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head as images, memories, flooded his consciousness. A gypsy camp. A mother's love, a father's death, mystical training, scientific genius, a scarred face, a metal mask. Victor Von Doom. Izuku gasped as the memories settled into place alongside his own, interwoven yet distinct. He was still Izuku Midoriya, but he was also something more. He stood slowly, feeling a new strength in his limbs, a new clarity in his mind. The quirkless boy who had been pushed aside, bullied, and ignored now contained the memories and knowledge of one of the most brilliant minds from another universe. Doom, he whispered, testing the word. I am Doom. 1 week later, Izuku stood in a crowd watching All Might battle a villain in downtown Musutafu. The crowd cheered as the symbol of peace saved the day with his trademark smile. Izuku felt nothing but contempt. After the battle, as the crowd dispersed, Izuku managed to approach the hero. All Might, he called out, his voice steady. I need to ask you something. The towering hero turned, his perpetual smile gleaming. What is it, young man? I'm quirkless, Izuku stated plainly. Can I still become a hero like you? All Might's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Without a quirk? I'm afraid that's not realistic. Pro heroes risk their lives daily. Without power, you'd be weak, Izuku finished. I wouldn't put it that way, but being a hero isn't just about willpower. It's about ability. Perhaps consider becoming a police officer? It's a noble profession, though they often get overshadowed by heroes. Izuku stared up at the man, watching the dismissal in those blue eyes. Something cold and hard crystallized in his chest. I understand, he said quietly. Thank you for your honesty. As All Might bounded away, Izuku stood motionless. The final piece had clicked into place. The final illusion shattered. He didn't need their approval. He didn't need their system. He didn't need their definition of hero. "This world shall know true strength," he murmured. "Not the hollow pageantry of these so-called heroes, but the uncompromising vision of doom." At 12, Izuku converted his bedroom into a workshop. While other children played with toys, he built circuit boards. While they watched cartoons, he studied nuclear physics and quantum mechanics. He began with small inventions, devices to monitor the hero's movements, algorithms to predict villain attacks, simple robots to gather materials. No one questioned where a quirkless middle schooler disappeared to after school. No one noticed as he accumulated knowledge and resources. His classmates still mocked him. Katsuki Bakugo still bullied him. Teachers still ignored him. Izuku allowed it. Let them underestimate him. Let them dismiss him as weak, quirkless Midoriya. Their perceptions meant nothing. Beneath an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Musutafu, Izuku constructed his first true sanctuary. No mere secret base, but the embryo of what would become his fortress. Here, surrounded by the machines of his creation, he began to forge his destiny. By 13, he had created his first working energy weapon, crude by Doom standards, but far beyond anything a teenager should be capable of. By 14, he had developed rudimentary force field technology, and at 15, Izuku Midoriya began work on his armor. "Not merely protection," he said to himself as he welded the chest plate. "Not merely enhancement. This is the physical manifestation of Doom's will." The armor took shape over months of painstaking work. Each component precisely crafted, each system meticulously designed. Unlike the original Doom's armor, which had been forged in Latveria with mystical enhancements, this was built from scavenged materials and advanced technology of Izuku's own design. When it was complete, he stood before it, admiring the gleaming metal. Not yet the masterpiece it would become, but a beginning. A declaration. He placed his hands on the cold metal of the mask. "The face of Doom," he whispered. "The face this world shall learn to both love and fear." The abandoned island in the Sea of Japan had once housed a research facility before an industrial accident had rendered it supposedly uninhabitable. The Japanese government had quarantined it, then forgotten about it. A perfect canvas for Izuku's ambitions. At 16, he made his first journey to the island, his prototype armor allowing him to fly across the water undetected. Landing on the rocky shore, he surveyed what would become his kingdom. "From nothing, Latveria shall rise again," he declared to the empty air. "Not as it was, but as it should be." Over the next months, Izuku divided his time between maintaining his mundane facade at school and building his power base on the island. He constructed automated factories that produced more advanced machines. Those machines, in turn, built even more sophisticated technology. The first Doombot took shape under his careful guidance, not merely a robot, but a sophisticated automaton capable of mimicking human behavior and carrying out complex tasks. Soon, one became 5, became 20, became 100. "You are extensions of Doom's will," he told them as they stood in perfect formation. "Through you, my reach extends." The Doombots began the transformation of the island, constructing underground facilities, power generators, defensive systems. A skeleton of infrastructure that would one day support a nation. Izuku's technological prowess grew exponentially, but he knew technology alone was insufficient. In his previous incarnation, Victor had mastered both science and sorcery. This world had no direct equivalent to the mystical forces Doom had once commanded, but it had quirks, biological manifestations of power that, to Izuku's analytical mind, operated on principles not entirely dissimilar to magic. He began collecting blood samples from powerful quirk users, a strand of hair from a classmate here, a discarded bandage from a hero there. In his island laboratory, he analyzed the genetic components of quirks, seeking to understand their fundamental nature. "The power is in the blood," he murmured as he examined a sample under a microscope, "as it was in the ancient arts." Through this research, Izuku developed methods to temporarily replicate certain quirk effects through technology. Not true quirks, but approximations, energy projection, matter manipulation, enhanced physical abilities. Powers that, when combined with his armor and intellect, made him formidable indeed, but he needed more than power. He needed followers, not mindless servants, but true believers. His first recruit came unexpectedly. A fishing boat, damaged in a storm, drifted to the island's shore. Lone fisherman aboard, an older man named Tanaka, expected death when he saw the armored figure approaching along the beach. Instead, Izuku offered him purpose. "This island is quarantined for a reason," Izuku said, his voice resonating through his mask. "Radiation poisoning will claim you within days." The fisherman accepted his fate with quiet dignity. "Unless," Izuku continued, "you accept the protection of doom. My technology can save your life, give you strength beyond your years. In exchange, you will serve as my eyes and ears on the mainland." Tanaka looked at the masked figure, then at his broken boat, then at the strange structures rising in the distance. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am the future," Izuku replied. "I am Doom." Tanaka became the first human citizen of New Latveria. Others followed: outcasts, criminals seeking redemption, brilliant minds rejected by society, people with quirks deemed villainous who had never chosen that path. To each, Izuku offered the same choice: loyalty in exchange for purpose and protection. His selection process was rigorous. He accepted only those who could contribute to his vision. By the time Izuku prepared to enter UA High School, New Latveria had a population of 37 humans and over 200 Doombots. Hidden from the world by advanced cloaking technology and maritime exclusion zones, the island nation grew in strength and capability. "The world remains ignorant of our existence," Izuku told his followers during one of his rare addresses. "They believe themselves safe in their society of false heroes and controlled power. Soon they shall learn otherwise." He stood before them in his completed armor, a masterwork of engineering that combined the aesthetic of Doom with functional improvements. Green energy glowed from its power sources, the metal gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, and the mask, that impassive regal mask, concealed not a scarred face, but the uncompromising determination of a young man with the memories of a conqueror. "We do not seek destruction," he continued. "Doom is not chaos. Doom is order. Perfect, uncompromising order. The current system will fall not because we destroy it, but because we show the world a better way." His followers cheered, their loyalty absolute. They had seen his genius, his power, his vision. They had experienced his harsh justice and his generous rewards. They believed. As Izuku prepared to infiltrate the hero world through its most prestigious institution, he knew the true test of his power was about to begin. "UA believes they will be training a hero," he said to his reflection as he removed his armor the night before the entrance exam. "Instead, they will be hosting the architect of their doom." The day of the UA entrance exam dawned clear and bright, a perfect day for heroes in training to show their potential. For Izuku Midoriya, it was merely another step in his master plan. He arrived at the examination center dressed in an unremarkable uniform, his demeanor subdued. To casual observers, he appeared to be yet another hopeful student, perhaps a bit more serious than most, but otherwise unremarkable. None could see the calculations running behind his green eyes, the contingencies being prepared, the traps being set. In the orientation room, he observed the other applicants with clinical detachment. Children playing at greatness, most of them. Untested, undisciplined, unworthy. His gaze settled briefly on Katsuki Bakugo, who had claimed the seat beside him with predictable arrogance. "Don't embarrass me, Midoriya," Bakugo growled. "A quirkless nobody like you shouldn't even be here." Izuku turned slightly toward him. "Your concern is noted, Bakugo," he replied, his voice cool and measured. "But unnecessary. Our paths diverge from this point forward." Bakugo blinked, momentarily thrown by the unfamiliar cadence and confidence in Izuku's voice. Before he could respond, Present Mick took the stage to explain the exam. Izuku listened with half an ear, having already hacked into UA systems weeks ago to learn the exact parameters of the test. Robot opponents worth varying points, a hidden rescue component, a time limit. Child's play. When they were assigned to their testing grounds, Izuku made his way to Area B. He carried a small backpack that had passed through security without issue. The screening systems unable to detect the advanced technology concealed within ordinary-looking components. As the examinees gathered at the entrance, Izuku quietly assembled his equipment. A slim metal band around each wrist, seemingly decorative. A small device attached to the back of his neck, hidden by his collar. Ordinary-looking athletic shoes that contained anything but ordinary mechanisms. When the gates opened without warning, most examinees hesitated in surprise. Izuku did not. He strode forward with measured steps, activating his equipment with subtle finger movements. The first robot that approached him, a one-pointer, raised its mechanical arm to strike. It never completed the motion. A burst of green energy erupted from Izuku's palm, shearing through the robot's core. It collapsed in a shower of sparks. "Insufficient," Izuku murmured, stepping over the debris. As he moved deeper into the fake city, he encountered more robots. 2-pointers, 3-pointers, entire groups of them converging on the examinees. Other students fought with their quirks, some effectively, others struggling. Izuku did not struggle. He did not run. He walked methodically through the chaos, destroying every robot that approached with precision energy blasts. The devices on his wrists generated protective force fields when needed. Though few attacks came close enough to test them, other examinees began to notice. A boy with engines in his legs paused in his own battle to stare as Izuku disintegrated 3 robots with a single sweeping energy arc. "What kind of quirk is that?" the engine-legged boy called out. Izuku didn't bother to answer. Let them wonder. Let them assume it was some kind of energy projection quirk. The truth would reveal itself in due time. Halfway through the exam, Izuku had accumulated 48 points without breaking a sweat. He decided it was time for a more dramatic demonstration. He found a clear area and pressed his palms together, activating the full potential of his concealed technology. Green energy coursed visibly up his arms as he raised his hands toward the sky. "Witness the power of doom," he said, his voice carrying, despite its measured tone, a pulse of energy expanded outward in a dome, washing over a 2-block radius. Every robot caught in the pulse froze, their electronic systems overridden by Izuku's specialized EMP. With a clench of his fist, the robots collapsed simultaneously, their points automatically registering to his score. In the monitoring room, the UA faculty watched in stunned silence. "That can't be right," President Mick said, staring at the scoreboard. "He just jumped from 48 points to 79 in one move." "What kind of quirk allows for both energy projection and electronic manipulation at that scale?" Midnight wondered. Principal Nezu leaned forward, his animal eyes narrowed. More importantly, why has a student with such an obviously powerful quirk never been registered in any of our databases? As the other examinees continued their battles, Izuku began walking toward the center of the testing area. His sensors had detected the imminent arrival of the 0-point robot, the supposed ultimate challenge of the exam. When the massive machine burst through a building, towering over the cityscape, the other examinees fled in panic. Izuku stood his ground, looking up at the mechanical behemoth with cold assessment. "Primitive," he stated. "Inefficient design. Predictable attack patterns." The 0-pointer detected him and swung a massive fist downward. Izuku didn't move. Instead, he raised one hand, the wrist device glowing brightly. A shield of energy formed above him, absorbing the robot's attack completely. With his other hand, he fired a concentrated beam of energy at the robot's central processing unit, a vulnerability he had identified from the exam blueprints he'd accessed earlier. The beam pierced the robot's armor like it was paper, striking the core systems. The 0-pointer froze mid-motion, then began to collapse. As it fell, Izuku noticed a girl trapped beneath some debris in its path. A brown-haired examinee who had overextended her quirk based on her exhausted appearance. A simple calculation. Saving her would demonstrate the heroic spirit the hidden portion of the exam was designed to test. Leaving her would eliminate a potential competitor. Izuku made his decision in a fraction of a second. With a burst from his enhanced shoes, he crossed the distance in seconds. One energy blast cleared the debris from the girl. Another reinforced the ground beneath them with a temporary force field. As he pulled her clear of the falling robot, as the dust settled, he set her down gently. "Thank you," she stammered, looking up at him with wide eyes. "You saved me." "It was logical," he replied simply, then turned away. As the exam ended, Izuku stood amid the destruction he had caused, surrounded by the confused and impressed gazes of his fellow examinees. He had shown only a fraction of his true capabilities, but it had been enough to establish his presence. In the faculty room, the teachers continued their discussion. "He scored 92 villain points," Midnight reported, "and 10 rescue points for saving that girl. That puts him at the top of the rankings." "Something doesn't add up," Aizawa muttered. A quirk that powerful would have been noticed long before now. And his movements, his tactics, those aren't the actions of a nervous examinee. He was completely in control the entire time. Perhaps he's been training privately? Present Mike suggested. Nezu shook his head slightly. Perhaps. Or perhaps there's more to young Midoriya than meets the eye. I believe we should keep a close watch on our new top student. 1 week later, Izuku received his acceptance letter. He didn't bother with the holographic message from All Might. He had already hacked the results days ago and knew he had placed first. Phase 1 complete, he said to the Doombot standing in his laboratory. Infiltration successful. What are your orders regarding UA, Master? The robot inquired. Izuku smiled thinly. We proceed as planned. I will attend as the model student while we accelerate development here. UA isn't merely a stepping stone. It's a resource to be exploited, a stage for Doom's first public demonstration. He turned to a large monitor displaying the schematics for an improved armor design, one that could be concealed beneath ordinary clothing yet deploy in seconds. The children play at being heroes, he said, but they have never faced a true vision of what this world could be. They will learn. All of them will learn. The attack on the USJ facility was precisely the opportunity Izuku had been waiting for. As the black mist deposited dozens of villains throughout the facility, separating the students of Class 1A, Izuku found himself transported to the central plaza alongside Bakugo and Kirishima. Before them stood a man covered in disembodied hands and a massive creature with an exposed brain. Those are the ones All Might will come to save, the hand-covered man said, scratching his neck compulsively. The symbol of peace will rush here, and then Nomu will kill him. Bakugo snarled, explosions popping from his palms. Like hell he will. I'll kill you myself. Kirishima activated his hardening quirk. We need to work together. Izuku observed the situation with cold calculation. These were the so-called League of Villains? This disorganized rabble led by a man-child? This was what passed for villainy in this world? Pathetic. Bakugo, Kirishima, he said quietly. Stand down. Huh, who the hell do you think you're ordering around, Midoriya? Bakugo snapped. Izuku didn't respond. Instead, he pressed a concealed button on his watch. His school uniform rippled, then seemed to dissolve, revealing the sleek, armored form beneath. Not his full armor, that would have been too conspicuous to wear to school, but a combat variant he had designed specifically for such contingencies. The green and silver armor gleamed under the facility lights. A smaller version of his mask deployed from his collar, covering his face with the impassive visage that would soon become known throughout the world. What the? Kirishima gasped. Is that his quirk? Bakugo stared in shock. Shigaraki tilted his head. A player with a hidden equipment set? Interesting, but it doesn't matter. Nomu will still... Silence! Izuku's voice resonated through his mask's amplifiers. Your prattle offends Doom. He raised his hand, and a beam of concentrated energy shot forth, striking the hand covering Shigaraki's face. The hand disintegrated instantly. Father! Shigaraki screamed, clawing at the empty air where the hand had been. A man who defines himself through the corpse of another is no man at all, Izuku stated, advancing forward. You are not a villain. You are a tantrum-given form. Shigaraki's red eyes widened in rage. Nomu! Kill him! The hulking creature moved with surprising speed, appearing before Izuku in an instant, massive fist already swinging. The blow connected with Izuku's armored chest and did nothing, not even pushing him back an inch. Engineered to kill All Might? Izuku said, looking up at the creature. Perhaps, but Doom is not All Might. His armor glowed with intensifying energy. Doom is inevitable. A blast of energy erupted from Izuku's entire body, sending the Nomu flying backward into the central fountain, which shattered under the impact. Before the creature could recover, Izuku was upon it, his armored hand gripping its exposed brain. Biological engineering. Crude but effective, he analyzed aloud. Multiple quirks artificially implanted. Interesting. With a surge of electricity from his gauntlet, he short-circuited the Nomu's nervous system. The creature convulsed, then went still. No! Shigaraki shrieked, rushing forward with hands outstretched. That was my Nomu! Mine, I'll decay you to dust! Izuku turned to face him. Your quirk requires all 5 fingers to touch your target, he stated calmly. A simple weakness to exploit. As Shigaraki's hand reached for his armor, Izuku caught his wrist in an iron grip. and you require a functioning hand to use that quirk. With clinical precision, he crushed Shigaraki's wrist, the bones splintering under his armor's enhanced strength. Shigaraki screamed in agony. "You are a child playing at villainy," Izuku said, lifting Shigaraki by his broken wrist. "You have no vision, no purpose beyond destruction. You are unworthy of the title villain." Behind them, Bakugo and Kirishima watched in horror and awe. "Midoriya, what are you doing?" Kirishima called out. "Heroes don't." "I am not a hero," Izuku replied, not bothering to look back. "Nor am I a villain. I am Doom." With that, he fired another energy blast directly through Shigaraki's chest, killing him instantly. The body fell limply to the ground as Izuku released it. "Master!" Kurogiri, the mist villain, materialized nearby, his yellow eyes wide with shock. "You've killed him!" "And you will join him," Izuku stated, turning toward the mist villain, "unless you prove yourself useful to Doom." Kurogiri hesitated, his mist fluctuating uncertainly. What do you want?" "Information, the location of your master, the one who created that creature, the one who gave Shigaraki his purpose." I cannot betray All for One," Kurogiri said, his voice trembling. "All for One," Izuku repeated, storing the name. "A quirk that takes other quirks? How fascinating!" Kurogiri's yellow eyes widened further. "How did you? Your mind is an open book to Doom's intellect. Your thoughts betray you." It wasn't entirely true. Izuku had pieced together the information from subtle cues and his own research, but the psychological impact was worth the deception. "Now, you will take me to him," Izuku commanded, "or you will die here." Kurogiri seemed to gather himself. "I think not!" His mist expanded rapidly, engulfing the area. "The pro-heroes will be here any moment. This battle is lost, but..." Izuku fired a specialized energy pulse that disrupted Kurogiri's molecular structure. The mist villain screamed as his body forcibly solidified, revealing the physical form within the mist. "A warp gate," Izuku observed, approaching the now solid villain. "Useful." He placed a small device on Kurogiri's neck. "This neural inhibitor will prevent you from using your quirk without my permission. You now serve Doom." As if on cue, the doors to the facility burst open, and All Might bounded in, his trademark smile nowhere to be seen. "Fear not, students. I am here," the symbol of peace announced, then froze at the scene before him. Shigaraki's body lay on the ground, the Nomu was motionless in the shattered fountain, and Kurogiri knelt before an armored figure that All Might didn't recognize. What has happened here?" All Might demanded. Izuku turned slowly to face the number one hero. "Justice," he replied simply, "of a sort you would not understand." All Might's eyes narrowed as he took in the armored figure. "Who are you? What have you done to these villains? The one called Shigaraki is dead. The creature is neutralized. This one," Izuku gestured to Kurogiri, "now serves a higher purpose. You killed him?" All Might's voice was incredulous. "That's not what heroes do. As I explained to my classmates," Izuku replied, his mask hiding any expression, "I am not a hero, not by your definition." He turned back to Kurogiri. "Take us to Latveria," he commanded. Before All Might could move, a portal opened beneath Izuku and Kurogiri, and they vanished. Latveria. All Might stared at the empty space. "What is Latveria?" Behind him, Bakugo finally found his voice. That was Deku. That was fucking Doom." In the days that followed the USJ incident, chaos erupted in the hero community. The death of Shigaraki and the disappearance of one of the students sent shockwaves through UA and beyond. Meanwhile, in his island fortress, Izuku interrogated Kurogiri, extracting every piece of information about All for One and his operations. The neural inhibitor ensured the mist villain's compliance, though Izuku had also offered certain incentives. "Your loyalty to Shigaraki was misplaced," Izuku told him. "He was impulsive, childish, without true vision. All for One merely used him as a tool against All Might, a symbolic weapon. Under Doom's guidance, you will serve a greater purpose." Kurogiri, though initially resistant, began to see the logic in Izuku's words. The armored ruler of Latveria demonstrated a level of planning and foresight that neither Shigaraki nor even All for One had shown. With Kurogiri's warp ability, Izuku's reach extended dramatically. He could now transport himself or his Doombots anywhere in Japan within seconds. This mobility allowed him to accelerate his plans significantly. First, he targeted the remaining members of the League of Villains. Each was given the same choice: serve Doom or perish. Toga Himiko, the blood-obsessed girl, was cornered in an abandoned warehouse. Her quirk allowed her to take on others' appearances, but against Doom's technology, she had no defense. Your ability to impersonate others could be useful, Izuku told her as she tried unsuccessfully to penetrate his armor with her knives. But your mental instability is a liability. Ooh, you're so serious, she giggled, dancing away from his energy blast. Are you gonna kill me like you killed Shigaraki? That wasn't very nice, you know. I offer you a choice, Izuku replied. Serve Doom with absolute loyalty, and I will provide you with the blood you crave, ethically sourced from willing donors. Continue your murderous path, and I will end your existence here. Toga tilted her head, considering. You'd give me blood? Without me having to stab people? Indeed. Your quirk has legitimate applications in espionage and infiltration. Doom has use for such talents, properly directed. She grinned widely. You're interesting. Much more interesting than Shigaraki was. Okay, I'll join your team. Not all encounters ended so amicably. Dabi, the fire-wielding villain, refused to submit. I bow to no one, he snarled, blue flames engulfing his arms. I have my own agenda. Ah, yes, your vendetta against Endeavor, Izuku said, casually revealing his knowledge of Dabi's true identity. Tuya Todoroki. Dabi's heterochromatic eyes widened in shock. How did you? Your thermal signature is distinctive. The modifications to your body are crude, effective, but ultimately self-destructive. In time, your own flames will consume you. That's my problem, Dabi growled, launching a massive blast of blue fire. Izuku didn't bother dodging. His armor absorbed the heat. He hit the temperature regulators, barely registering the strain. I could offer you healing, Izuku said as he walked through the flames. Repair the damage to your body. Give you control over your quirk that you've never known. For a moment, Dabi hesitated. Then his face hardened. And become your slave? I don't think so. Not a slave, a citizen of Latveria, protected by Doom's power, contributing to Doom's vision. I told you, I have my own agenda. Izuku sighed behind his mask. Then you have chosen your fate. The battle was brief but intense. Dabi's flames were powerful, but against Doom's armor and calculated attacks, he stood no chance. In the end, Izuku didn't kill him. Instead, he used a specialized energy pulse to temporarily disable Dabi's quirk, then had him transported to Latveria for rehabilitation. Your hatred of Endeavor is justified, Izuku told the restrained villain as Latverian medical technology worked to stabilize his damaged body. But your methods are short-sighted. When you are ready to see beyond your personal vendetta, Doom will welcome your talents. One by one, Izuku assessed the various villain groups operating in Japan. Many were eliminated outright, those who existed purely for destruction or personal gain. Others were absorbed into Latveria's growing power structure, their abilities harnessed toward Izuku's grand design. All the while, the hero community searched frantically for the missing UA student and the mysterious armored figure who had killed Shigaraki. They found nothing. Doom moved like a shadow, his operations cloaked by technology beyond their understanding. The only one who came close to discovering the truth was Nezu, the principal of UA. The intelligent animal connected the dots between Izuku's surprising performance in the entrance exam, his advanced quirk, and his disappearance coinciding with the emergence of the armored figure. I believe young Midoriya and this Doom character may be one and the same, Nezu told the assembled faculty. His background showed no quirk registration, yet he displayed extraordinary abilities during the exam. And now this armored villain appears, using similar energy-based attacks. But why would a student who worked so hard to enter UA suddenly become a villain? Present Mike asked. Perhaps that was his plan all along, Aizawa suggested grimly. Infiltrate UA, gather intelligence, then strike. Or perhaps, Nezu said thoughtfully, he never saw himself as either hero or villain in the traditional sense. This Doom reportedly told All Might he was neither. He's operating according to his own paradigm. The faculty debated what to do, ultimately deciding to keep their suspicions confidential while they gathered more evidence. But Izuku was already steps ahead of them. Through carefully placed surveillance devices, he monitored the hero community's response to his actions. Their confusion amused him. They still thought in such binary terms: hero versus villain, good versus evil. They couldn't comprehend a third path. 6 weeks after the USJ incident, Izuku made his most audacious move yet. Using information extracted from Kurogiri, he located All for One's hidden base in Kamino Ward. The attack was swift and devastating. Doombots breached the facility's defenses, while Izuku himself confronted the ultimate villain of Japan. All for One, a man whose face was hidden behind a life support mask, sat calmly in his chair as Doom entered his sanctum. "I've been expecting you," the ancient villain said, his voice distorted by his mask. "The one who killed my protege and stole my warp gate. And you've made quite an impression." "All for one," Izuku replied, standing before him. "A being who has sustained himself beyond his natural lifespan through the theft of others' powers. Impressive in a primitive way." All for One chuckled. "You speak as though you're above such methods, yet here you stand in your technological crutch, hiding behind armor and machines." "Doom hides behind nothing. This armor is not a crutch, but an extension of my will. As for technology, it is merely one tool among many." All for One leaned forward slightly. "And what is it you want, Doom? To eliminate a potential rival? To take my place in the underworld?" "Your vision is too limited," Izuku replied. "You seek power for power's sake. You cultivate chaos to weaken the hero society. But to what end? What world do you envision beyond All Might's defeat?" "Freedom," All for One said simply. "Freedom from the tyranny of quirk regulation, from the artifice of the hero system." "Half measures," Izuku dismissed. "You would replace one flawed system with mere anarchy. Doom offers true freedom, freedom through perfect order." "Ah," All for One nodded slowly. "A tyrant's promise. Submit to my rule, and I will protect you. How many would-be conquerors have made such claims throughout history?" "The difference," Izuku replied, "is that Doom delivers on his promises." Without warning, All for One attacked, multiple quirks activating simultaneously. Tendrils shot from his fingers, the air around him distorted with kinetic energy, and a pressure wave expanded outward. Izuku met the assault with calculated precision. His armor's force fields absorbed the pressure wave, energy blasts severed the tendrils, and his own momentum carried him through the distortion field. "Fascinating," he commented as he analyzed the quirks being used against him. "You possess dozens of abilities, yet use them with minimal strategic cohesion, quantity over quality." All for One's attack intensified. "You talk too much, boy." The battle escalated quickly, destroying much of the underground facility. All for One's raw power was immense, but Izuku fought with the calculated efficiency of Doom, each move precise, each countermeasure perfectly timed. "Your quirk intrigues me," Izuku said as they faced each other in the rubble. "The ability to take and bestow quirks? Such power should serve a greater purpose than mere destruction." And I suppose you believe you are that greater purpose?" All for One laughed bitterly. "Doom is the future," Izuku replied. "A future where power serves order, not chaos. Where humanity evolves beyond these petty conflicts." Pretty words from a killer. "I eliminate those who threaten true progress. Your Nomu experiments, your cultivation of destructive elements, these set humanity back, not forward." All for One gathered his energy for another massive attack. "Enough philosophy. Let us settle this with power, as all conflicts ultimately are." The final clash shook the entire ward. All for One unleashed everything he had, a combination of strength enhancement, impact multiplication, and energy projection quirks. Izuku met it with the full power of his armor, supplemented by the mystical energy techniques he had adapted from his memories of Victor Von Doom. When the dust settled, Izuku stood over the broken form of All for One. The ancient villain was alive, but barely, his life support systems damaged. What will you do now?" All for One wheezed. "Kill me? Take my quirk somehow?" "Neither," Izuku replied. "You will live as a citizen of Latveria. Your quirk and your knowledge are too valuable to waste in death." He placed a neural inhibitor similar to Kurogiri's on All for One's neck. "But you will serve Doom's vision, not your own." As Kurogiri transported them back to Latveria, Izuku contemplated his progress. The major villain elements of Japan had been either eliminated or co-opted. The hero society was in disarray, unsure how to respond to this new force that operated outside their paradigm. "Phase 2 complete," he said to himself as he looked out over his growing kingdom. "The weak have been culled, now to show the world the true face of Doom." 2 days before the UA Sports Festival, a transmission interrupted all broadcast signals across Japan. On every screen, the impassive metal mask of Doom appeared. "People of Japan," the modulated voice began, I address you not as a villain, nor as a hero, but as the harbinger of a new order. I am Doom." In the UA faculty room, the teachers watched in stunned silence. For too long, your society has perpetuated a flawed system. Heroes who seek fame rather than justice, villains who destroy without purpose, and a populace caught in between. Doom offers an alternative. The camera pulled back to reveal Izuku in his full armor, standing on a balcony overlooking a gleaming city of advanced architecture. New Latveria, though the viewers didn't yet know its name. 2 days hence, I will participate in the UA Sports Festival. Not to claim the hollow prize of victory, but to demonstrate the true potential that lies dormant in humanity. Watch and witness the dawn of a new age. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving chaos in its wake. "Can we trace it?" Principal Nezu asked. "Impossible," the support department head replied. "The signal bounced through hundreds of satellites and servers. It's like nothing I've ever seen." "He's coming here?" Midnight looked concerned. "After killing Shigaraki and vanishing with that mist villain? It's clearly a trap," Aizawa stated flatly. "We should cancel the festival." Nezu shook his head. "No, that would cause panic and show weakness. Instead, we increase security and prepare for his arrival. If this Doom wants to make a statement, we'll be ready to respond." Meanwhile, in Class 1A, the remaining students watched the broadcast with varying reactions. "That's him," Kirishima said quietly. "That's who Midoriya became." Bakugo glared at the screen. "That fucking nerd, always hiding his power, making me think he was quirkless. I'll kill him!" "He killed Shigaraki without hesitation," Todoroki noted, his heterochromatic eyes narrowed. "And now he's challenging the entire hero system." Ida stood rigidly. "We must inform the teachers immediately that he intends to infiltrate the sports festival." "They already know, you idiot." Bakugo snapped. "He just broadcasted it to the entire country." As the class devolved into anxious discussion across Japan, reactions were mixed. Some were terrified at this new threat, others intrigued by his message. A few, those who had grown disillusioned with the Hero Society, found themselves nodding in agreement with his words. The day of the sports festival arrived with unprecedented security. Every top hero not on critical assignment was present. Police forces surrounded the stadium. Support items were banned entirely to prevent concealed weapons. Yet when the first-year students gathered for the opening ceremony, Izuku Midoriya stood among them wearing a standard UA gym uniform. "Midoriya?" Uraraka gasped, spotting him. "You're back. Everyone thought you became Doom," he finished for her, his voice calm. "I did not become Doom. I am Doom, and I always have been." The students backed away from him, creating a conspicuous empty space. "You killed someone," Ida accused, his hand chopping the air emphatically. "That is unforgivable for anyone aspiring to be a hero." "I have never aspired to be a hero," Izuku replied, "not by this society's flawed definition." Before the confrontation could end, Midnight appeared on the stage, announcing the start of the festival. As she prepared to explain the first event, her eyes locked on Izuku standing among the students. She faltered momentarily, then continued with professional composure. "The first event is an obstacle race. All participants will follow the outer circumference of the stadium through a series of obstacles. The first 42 to finish will advance." As the students took their positions at the starting gate, heroes positioned themselves strategically throughout the course. Ready to intercept Doom if he attempted anything dangerous, the race began, and immediately the narrow exit created a bottleneck. Most students pushed and shoved using their quirks to gain advantage. Izuku simply walked forward, a subtle energy field emanating from his body that gently but firmly moved others aside. The first obstacle, the robot sentinels from the entrance exam, appeared before them. While other students fought or evaded the machines, Izuku approached calmly. With a wave of his hand, the robots froze in place, their systems overridden. "Primitive technology," he commented as he walked past them. The second obstacle, a chasm crossed by tight ropes, posed no challenge. Izuku simply activated the anti-gravity units he'd integrated into his gym shoes, walking across the empty air as if on solid ground. The final obstacle, the minefield, was meant to slow participants who had taken the lead. Izuku didn't bother avoiding the mines. He walked directly across, each mine detonating harmlessly against a thin force field that hugged his body like a second skin. He crossed the finish line first, having never broken from a walking pace throughout the entire race. And the first to finish is Izuku Midoriya. Present Mike announced, his voice lacking its usual enthusiasm, without using any support items, which are prohibited. Izuku looked directly at the announcer's booth. Doom requires no support items, as what you witnessed is merely the application of intellect. In the stands, the pro heroes watched with growing concern. That wasn't a quirk, Eraserhead muttered. I tried to erase his abilities multiple times during the race. Nothing happened. Then what is it? Midnight asked. Technology, Powerloader replied grimly, advanced beyond anything I've ever seen, miniaturized to the point of being nearly undetectable. The second event, a cavalry battle, began with Izuku as the primary target, his headband worth 10 million points. No one volunteered to join his team. I require no allies for this exercise, he stated. Doom stands alone. The rules required a minimum of 2 people per team, but before Midnight could disqualify him, Izuku raised his hand. If it is a team you require, he said, his voice carrying across the field, then a team you shall have. From beneath his gym uniform, a small device activated. The air beside him shimmered, and a perfect holographic duplicate of himself appeared, solid enough to support the real Izuku on its shoulders. This satisfies the requirement of a minimum 2-person team, he stated. Unless you wish to discriminate against advanced technology? Midnight hesitated, then consulted with the other judges via her earpiece. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. The team of Midoriya is approved. What followed was less a competition than a demonstration. Every team converged on Izuku, determined to claim the 10 million points. None came close. Force fields repelled physical attacks. Energy pulses disabled quirks that might have bypassed his defenses. The holographic duplicate moved with perfect coordination, as if it were truly an extension of Izuku himself. When the time expired, Izuku stood untouched, his headband still in place. And moving on to the final tournament, Midnight announced, are the following students. The tournament structure was announced, and Izuku found himself matched against Hitoshi Shinso in the first round. The purple-haired general studies student approached him before the match. You're not what you appear to be, are you, Midoriya? Shinso asked. Izuku regarded him coolly. Few things are. Your quirk brainwashing requires a verbal response to activate, an interesting power but limited by its psychological nature. Shinso's eyes widened slightly. How did you... Doom knows all, Izuku replied simply. Your ambition to transfer to the hero course is admirable, but misplaced. Your quirk would be far more effective in intelligence gathering and covert operations than in conventional heroics. You don't get to decide that, Shinso retorted. No, society's narrow definition of heroism has already decided it for you. That is precisely what Doom intends to change. When their match began, Shinso immediately attempted to provoke Izuku into responding. Izuku remained silent, approaching his opponent with measured steps. Too afraid to speak, Shinso taunted. The great Doom, silenced by a general studies student, Izuku simply raised his hand. A pulse of energy emanated from his palm, washing over Shinso and disrupting his neural patterns momentarily. The purple-haired student staggered, disoriented. Your quirk affects the brain's response to verbal commands, Izuku finally spoke, knowing Shinso was temporarily unable to use his ability. An impressive power, but one that can be countered through understanding its neurological basis. With another gesture, he created an energy field around Shinso, lifting him off the ground and depositing him outside the boundary. Midoriya advances, Midnight declared. Each subsequent match followed a similar pattern. Against Ibara Shiozaki, whose vines attempted to ensnare him, Izuku demonstrated his control over plant life through specialized energy frequencies that caused her vines to wither. Your quirk connects you to nature, he told her as she struggled to maintain control of her failing vines. In Latveria, such harmony with the natural world is valued. Consider your place in the current system carefully. Against Fumikage Tokoyami and his dark shadow, Izuku simply filled the arena with light, weakening the shadow creature to near uselessness. Reliance on a single ability, however powerful, creates vulnerability, he lectured as he defeated Tokoyami. True strength comes from adaptability and preparation. In the semifinals, he faced Shoto Todoroki, whose dual quirk of ice and fire made him one of UA's most powerful students. You refuse to use your fire, Izuku noted as Todoroki launched a massive ice attack that shattered harmlessly against his force field. A decision born from hatred of your father. Emotional, not tactical. Todoroki's heterochromatic eyes widened. You know nothing about me. I know everything about you, Shoto Todoroki, son of Endeavor, created through a quirk marriage to surpass all might. Your left side remains cold because you reject your father's legacy. Shut up. Todoroki sent another wave of ice, larger than before. Izuku walked through it, the ice melting before it could touch him. Your brother Tuya believed he could defeat your father through destruction. He failed. You believe you can defeat him through rejection. You will also fail. What do you know about Tuya? Todoroki demanded, his composure cracking. I know he lives. Izuku replied calmly. I know his hatred consumed him until he became what he despised. I know he now serves a greater purpose in Latveria, where his burns are being healed and his power stabilized. Todoroki froze, his next attack dying before it formed. You have my brother? Doom has saved your brother from self-destruction, as I can save you from your own misguided rebellion. In that moment of distraction, Izuku closed the distance between them. A pulse of energy disrupted Todoroki's quirk activation, and a sweeping leg took the heterochromatic boy to the ground. Your power is your own, Izuku said, standing over him. Not your father's to claim, nor yours to reject. In Latveria, you would be valued for your potential, not your pedigree. He offered Todoroki his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Todoroki took it, allowing Izuku to help him to his feet. Todoroki has left the boundary. Midoriya advances to the final, Midnight announced. The final match pitted Izuku against Katsuki Bakugo, who had fought his way through the bracket with explosive fury. Finally, Bakugo snarled as they faced each other in the arena. No more hiding, Midoriya. I'll show everyone that you're just a fucking fake. Izuku regarded him impassively. Katsuki Bakugo, your power is impressive, but your understanding is limited. You mistake violence for strength, victory for worth. Shut up and fight me! Bakugo launched himself forward, explosions propelling him at high speed. The battle that followed was entirely one-sided. Every explosion Bakugo unleashed was contained, absorbed, or redirected. Every attack he attempted was countered with methodical precision. Throughout it all, Izuku never once struck back. He simply neutralized each assault and continued his calm assessment. Your quirk gives you power, but not purpose, he told Bakugo as he contained another explosion. You seek to be the strongest because you know nothing else. In this, you're like a child with a hammer, seeing everything as a nail. Fight back, Bakugo screamed, his frustration mounting. Stop defending and attack me. Why? Izuku asked simply. What would that prove? That I can defeat you? That is already evident. In a final, desperate move, Bakugo gathered all his power for his ultimate attack, the howitzer impact. As he spun through the air, building momentum and explosive force, Izuku simply watched. At the moment Bakugo released his attack, Izuku raised his hand. The massive explosion froze in midair, contained within an energy field. Impressive output, Izuku commented, examining the suspended explosion, but ultimately futile. With a gesture, he compressed the explosive force into a tiny sphere, then released it harmlessly upward, where it detonated high above the stadium in a spectacular display. Bakugo landed, panting and wide-eyed. What the hell are you? I am what humanity could become, Izuku replied, free from the limitations of quirk genetics, beyond the artificial constraints of hero society. With a final pulse of energy, he knocked Bakugo unconscious, catching him before he hit the ground and placing him gently outside the boundary. The winner of the UA Sports Festival is Izuku Midoriya, Midnight announced, her voice tense. As the crowd sat in stunned silence, Izuku turned to address them directly. People of Japan, he began, his voice carrying throughout the stadium and to the millions watching the broadcast. You have witnessed only a fraction of what is possible when intellect is unshackled from convention. The pro-heroes tensed, ready to intervene, but Izuku made no threatening moves. Your society divides people based on the genetic lottery of quirks. Those born with powerful abilities are elevated, those without are dismissed. Even among the gifted, arbitrary distinctions between heroic and villainous quirks determine destinies before they are lived. He gestured to the unconscious form of Bakugo. This young man possesses a destructive quirk that society deems heroic simply because he uses it under a license. The same power in different hands would be labeled villainous. Izuku turned slowly, addressing all sides of the stadium. Doom offers an alternative. In Latveria, power serves purpose. Technology and ability are developed not for personal fame or destruction, but for the advancement of all. From his position on the field, he activated a device on his wrist. Above the stadium, the air shimmered, and a massive holographic image appeared, an island nation of gleaming spires and advanced architecture. New Latveria exists. It stands as testament to what humanity can achieve when freed from artificial constraints. Those who recognize the limitations of the current system are welcome to witness true progress. With that, he pressed another button on his wrist. A portal opened behind him. Kurogiri's warp gate expanded to impressive size. The age of heroes and villains is ending, Izuku declared. The age of doom has begun. He stepped backward into the portal, which closed behind him, leaving a stadium full of shocked spectators and confused heroes. In the aftermath, the Hero Commission and government officials scrambled to respond. They attempted to locate New Latveria, to no avail. The island nation remained hidden, shielded by technology beyond their capability to detect. What they didn't realize was that Doom's demonstration had achieved exactly what he intended. Across Japan, people began questioning the hero system they had taken for granted. Online forums debated his points about quirk discrimination and the arbitrary nature of hero licensing. And most importantly, those who felt marginalized by the current system, those with villainous quirks, those who lacked the flash and marketability to become conventional heroes, those who saw the corruption beneath the shining surface, began to look toward Latveria with interest. The seeds of revolution had been planted. Doom's harvest would soon begin. In the weeks following the sports festival, reports of hero killings spread across Japan. Stain, the hero killer, had accelerated his crusade, targeting pro-heroes he deemed false or unworthy. His latest victim was the turbo hero, Ingenium, leaving him paralyzed and ending his career. From his command center in New Latveria, Izuku monitored these developments with clinical interest. Stain's ideology, that only those who embodied true heroism deserved the title, aligned somewhat with Doom's own assessment of the hero system's flaws. However, his methods were crude, and his vision limited. A potential ally, or a misguided fanatic to be eliminated? Izuku mused as he reviewed footage of Stain's attacks. We shall see. The opportunity to make that assessment came sooner than expected. Tenya Ida, brother of the injured Ingenium, had taken an internship in Hosu City, clearly seeking revenge against the hero killer. Meanwhile, the League of Villains, now under new leadership following Shigaraki's death, planned to unleash multiple Nomu in the same city. Izuku decided to intervene personally. This confluence of events presented an opportunity to observe both Stain's capabilities and the remnants of All for One's organization. Clad in his full armor, Doom arrived in Hosu via one of Kurogiri's portals, materializing on a rooftop overlooking the city. Almost immediately, explosions erupted in several locations as the Nomu attacked. Predictable, Izuku commented. Without Shigaraki's childish impulsiveness or All for One's strategic guidance, they resort to mere chaos. He activated his armor's sensors, scanning the city for Stain's distinctive thermal and movement patterns. He had studied enough footage of the hero killer to create a profile that his technology could track. Within moments, he located his target in an alleyway, confronting both Ida and a low-ranking hero named Native. Izuku flew toward the location, arriving just as Stain had paralyzed both heroes with his quirk. The false heroes will be purged, Stain was saying, his blade raised over Ida's prone form. Only those who embody true heroism deserve. And who bestowed upon you the authority to judge? Izuku's modulated voice cut through the night as he descended into the alley. Stain whirled, his bloodshot eyes widening behind his mask. You're the one who killed Shigaraki, the one who calls himself Doom. I am Doom, Izuku confirmed, landing gracefully before the hero killer. And you are Chizome Akaguro, the hero killer. Stain, former vigilante hero killer, Stendhal, a man who lost faith in the hero system. Stain's eyes narrowed. You know me. I know all who might serve or threaten my vision, that your crusade against false heroes has merit in its foundation, if not its execution. Are you here to stop me? Stain asked, his posture shifting to a combat stance. I am here to evaluate you, Izuku replied. Your ideology recognizes the corruption within the hero system. a system that values marketability over morality, fame over function. In this, we find common ground. Behind his mask, Stain frowned. Yet you killed Shigaraki, who also sought to destroy the hero society. Shigaraki sought destruction without purpose. He was a child throwing a tantrum, not a visionary seeking reform. You, at least, have principles. Izuku glanced at the paralyzed forms of Ida and Native. Though your methods are inefficient, you eliminate individuals while leaving the system intact, cutting heads from a hydra without cauterizing the wounds. Stain tilted his head, reassessing the armored figure before him. And what would you suggest? What is your vision? Transformation, Izuku stated simply. Not mere destruction, but reconstruction. The hero society is built on fundamental flaws: quirk supremacy, artificial scarcity of licenses, commercialization of protection. These cannot be corrected by removing individuals. The entire foundation must be replaced. For a moment, Stain seemed to consider this. Then he shook his head. Pretty words, but I've heard such grand visions before. The world changes through blood and example, not philosophizing. He lunged suddenly, his serrated blade aiming for a gap in Izuku's armor. The blade never connected. An energy field stopped it inches from its target. Your conviction is admirable, Izuku said, not moving despite the attack. But your understanding is incomplete. With a gesture, he released a pulse that disrupted Stain's nervous system, causing him to drop his weapon and stagger backward. You believe yourself a necessary evil, purging corruption to allow true heroism to flourish, Izuku continued, advancing slowly. But you are merely treating symptoms while the disease spreads unchecked. Stain recovered quickly, drawing a secondary blade and attempting to circle around. And you think you can cure this disease? One man? One man with the vision and power to implement true change, not through random culling, but through systematic replacement. As they spoke, Ida managed to find his voice, still paralyzed on the ground. Both of you are criminals, murderers, true heroes don't kill. Izuku turned slightly toward the prone student. Tenya Ida, you came seeking Vince, not justice. You abandoned your internship duties, risked civilian lives, all for personal revenge. Tell me, how does this embody the heroism you claim to represent? Ida's eyes widened, then narrowed in shame and anger. The boy proves my point, Stain growled. False heroes in training, learning to wear the mask of righteousness while serving their own interests. On this we agree, Izuku nodded, but where we differ is in the solution. He turned back to Stain. Join Latveria. Your skills, your conviction, these could serve a greater purpose than this bloody crusade. Stain laughed, a harsh sound. Serve you? Trade one master for another? I follow only my own convictions. Not as a servant, but as an arbiter, Izuku clarified. In Latveria, we are building a society where true worth is recognized and rewarded. We need those who can see through pretense, who can identify genuine merit. For a moment, Stain hesitated, something like interest flickering in his bloodshot eyes. Then the sounds of approaching heroes reached them. Reinforcements arriving to deal with the Nomu attacks had detected their location. Time grows short, Izuku stated. Make your choice, hero killer. Continue your limited crusade until inevitable capture or death, or join a true revolution. Stain's grip tightened on his blade. I serve no one's vision but my own. He attacked again, this time with blinding speed, aiming for multiple points simultaneously. Izuku responded with equal precision, energy fields blocking each strike while he analyzed Stain's fighting style. Impressive technique, he commented. Self-taught with influences from multiple martial arts. Your quirk, Blood Curdle, requires you to ingest blood to paralyze your targets. The duration varies based on blood type, an efficient design for an assassin. Stain's eyes widened in surprise at the detailed analysis. How could you possibly? Doom knows all, Izuku replied simply. He caught Stain's wrist in a gauntleted hand, the armor's enhanced strength immobilizing the hero killer effortlessly. Your potential is wasted in this futile crusade. With his free hand, Izuku fired a targeted energy pulse that disrupted Stain's central nervous system, rendering him unconscious. As the hero killer slumped to the ground, Izuku turned to address the still paralyzed Ida. Remember this moment, Tenya Ida, he said, his masked face impassive. You came seeking vengeance and found yourself helpless. The path you walk leads not to heroism, but to the same darkness you claim to fight against. The sounds of approaching heroes grew louder. I could kill you now, Izuku continued, both of you, but your deaths would serve no purpose in my design. Instead, you will live to witness the transformation that comes. He lifted the unconscious form of Stain. This one, however, has potential that should not be wasted in a prison cell. As Endeavor and several other heroes rounded the corner into the alley, Izuku activated a teleportation device. The last thing Ida saw before the armored figure vanished with Stain was the impassive metal mask, green energy glowing from its eye slits. Doom sees the truth in all hearts. Izuku's voice lingered after his form had disappeared. Even yours, young hero. Remember that. In New Latveria, Stain awoke in a medical facility unlike any he had ever seen. Advanced technology monitored his vital signs, and a transparent force field contained him within a comfortable but secure room. The hero killer awakens. Izuku's voice came through hidden speakers. A moment later, Doom himself entered, still clad in his armor but without the cape. "Where am I?" Stain demanded, testing the force field and finding it impenetrable. "New Latveria," Izuku replied. "My nation. A society built on merit rather than accident of birth or commercial appeal." He gestured, and one wall of the room became transparent, revealing a view of the island city. Gleaming towers of advanced design rose above carefully planned districts. People moved about their business, working alongside Doombots in apparent harmony. "What you see is merely the beginning," Izuku continued. "A prototype of what human society could become when freed from its self-imposed limitations." Stain approached the transparent wall, studying the scene with evident confusion. "You built all this? How long has this existed?" New Latveria has existed for less than a year in its current form. What you see is the result of technology and organization unfettered by bureaucracy or tradition. And these people, they follow you willingly. "They are citizens of Latveria," Izuku replied. "They contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. No one is valued for their quirk alone, nor dismissed for lacking one." He approached the force field separating them. "I brought you here not as a prisoner, but as a potential citizen. Your skills and conviction could serve a greater purpose than random assassination." "And if I refuse?" Stain asked, his posture still defiant. "Then you will be returned to Japan to face their justice system. I have no need for unwilling servants." Izuku waved his hand and the force field disappeared. "You are free to explore New Latveria under escort. Observe what we have built, then make your decision." Over the next days, Stain was shown the various aspects of the island nation. He saw the advanced medical facilities where healing technologies, far beyond Japan's standard care, treated citizens regardless of status. He witnessed the educational system where children were taught based on their individual aptitudes, rather than standardized curricula. Most significantly, he observed the justice system, where disputes were resolved through a combination of AI analysis and human judgment, free from the corruption and favoritism that plague conventional courts. "There are no heroes here," Stain noted as he walked with his escort, a former Japanese detective who had joined Latveria after exposing corruption in the police force. "No villains either." "Those are constructs of the old system," the escort explained. "Here, we have public safety officers who protect citizens from harm, but they serve rather than rule. They earn respect through actions, not marketing campaigns." On the third day, Stain was brought before Doom again, at this time in a chamber that served as Izuku's throne room, a deliberate choice of setting to emphasize the hierarchical nature of Latverian society. "You have seen New Latveria," Izuku stated from his seated position. "You have witnessed what we are building. What is your assessment, hero killer?" Stain stood silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "Your society has merit. There is less pretense here, less falsehood, but you still rule absolutely." "I rule because I must," Izuku replied. "Democracy functions only when the populace has equal access to information and equal capacity to process it. Until that equality is achieved, majority rule simply becomes tyranny of the uninformed." "Pretty justification for dictatorship," Stain observed. "Not justification, explanation. I make no apologies for my methods. Results speak for themselves." Stain paced the chamber, considering. "And what would be my role in this?" "Latveria. You have a unique ability to judge character, to see through pretense to the core of a person. Such insight is valuable in any society, but especially one being built anew. Izuku rose from his throne, descending the steps to stand before Stain. You would serve as arbiter, evaluating those who wish to join our society, identifying threats, ensuring that those in positions of responsibility remain worthy of their trust. You would give me the power to judge, Stain asked, surprise evident in his voice. Within parameters, Izuku clarified. Your judgments would require evidence, and your punishments would be proportional. No more random executions based solely on your personal assessment of false heroism. He extended a gauntleted hand. You sought to purify a corrupt system through blood. I offer you the chance to help build a better one through wisdom. Stain looked at the offered hand, then at the masked face of Doom. After a long moment, he reached out and clasped Izuku's forearm in a warrior's grip. I will see if your vision proves true, he said. But know this, if Latveria becomes as corrupt as the society it seeks to replace, my blades will find new purpose. I would expect nothing less, Izuku replied. Doom welcomes scrutiny, for Doom's vision withstands all examination. And so the hero killer became the first arbiter of Latveria, his skills redirected from destruction to construction. His appointment sent shockwaves through the hero society when it became public, a known killer now serving as judge in Doom's growing nation. But it also sent a different message to those who felt marginalized by the current system. If even Stain, the most notorious critic of the hero society, found value in Doom's vision, perhaps there was truly an alternative to the status quo. As reports of heroes and civilians alike seeking passage to Latveria increased, the Japanese government faced a growing crisis. Doom's revolution was gaining momentum not through force, but through example, exactly as he had planned. The official revelation of New Latveria to the world came not through Doom's declaration, but through necessity. A massive tsunami approached Japan's eastern coast, threatening catastrophic damage. As heroes and emergency services prepared for evacuation and rescue operations, something unprecedented occurred. The tsunami simply stopped. Satellite imagery showed a massive energy barrier extending from an uncharted island in the Sea of Japan, creating a wall that divided the ocean itself. The wave spent its force against this immovable barrier, dissipating harmlessly. As the world watched in amazement, communication systems across Japan received a transmission. The now familiar masked face of Doom appeared on screens nationwide. People of Japan, Izuku's modulated voice began. What you have witnessed is merely one application of Latverian technology. The tsunami has been neutralized at no cost to life or property. The image shifted to show an aerial view of New Latveria, a gleaming city of advanced architecture surrounded by carefully managed natural environments. At its center stood a massive structure reminiscent of a medieval castle, yet clearly incorporating futuristic elements. For months, we have developed our nation in seclusion, perfecting systems and technologies beyond current global standards. Today, New Latveria announces its presence to the world, not through threats or ultimatums, but through action. International response was immediate and chaotic. Emergency sessions of the United Nations were called. Military vessels from multiple nations changed course to investigate this previously unknown territory. News networks scrambled to cover what many were calling the most significant geopolitical development of the century. In Japan, the Hero Commission and government officials held emergency meetings. The revelation that an independent nation had existed undetected within Japanese territorial waters represented both a security failure of unprecedented scale and a direct challenge to national sovereignty. Meanwhile, in New Latveria, Izuku observed the global reaction from his command center within Castle Doom. The massive structure served as both his residence and the central hub of Latverian governance and research. Predictable responses, he noted to his assembled advisors, a group that included reformed villains, disillusioned former heroes, and brilliant minds recruited from around the world. Fear, disbelief, outrage, curiosity, the foundation for negotiation. Kurogiri, now serving as Latveria's Minister of Transportation, spoke up. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force has deployed vessels toward our position. They will reach our territorial waters within hours. They will be met with courtesy but firmness, Izuku replied. Prepare a diplomatic contingent and ensure our defensive systems remain at full capacity. Within Latveria itself, the citizens watched these developments with varying degrees of concern. In the months since its founding, the island nation had grown to a population of nearly 5,000, a diverse mix of those who had chosen to leave conventional society for Doom's vision of the future. The infrastructure supporting this population was nothing short of miraculous by outside standards. Clean energy generated through a combination of advanced nuclear fusion and dimensional tapping powered everything. Automated agriculture provided abundant food. Medical technology eliminated most diseases and extended healthy lifespans. Most importantly, the social structure Izuku had designed eliminated the quirk-based discrimination that permeated other societies. In Latveria, one's value came from contribution and character, not genetic lottery. As the first Japanese vessels approached Latverian waters, they were met by a delegation led by a former Japanese diplomat who had defected to Doom's service. The delegation traveled aboard a hovering platform that moved effortlessly across the water's surface. On behalf of Lord Doom and the citizens of New Latveria, I welcome you, the diplomat announced via communication systems. We extend diplomatic greetings and request formal recognition of our sovereign status. The JMSDF commander responded with predictable demands for surrender and accusations of illegal occupation of Japanese territory. The Latverian delegation listened politely, then replied with a simple statement: "This island was abandoned by Japan following industrial contamination. Lord Doom has restored it to habitability through advanced technology. We claim the right of improvement and occupation of derelict territory as established in international law." When the JMSDF threatened military action, the diplomat merely smiled. "We recommend against such action. Observe." From the island, a single drone launched, approaching one of the military vessels. Before it could be targeted, the drone emitted a pulse that instantly disabled all electronic systems on the ship, leaving it dead in the water, but otherwise unharmed. "We have no desire for conflict," the diplomat continued, as the JMSDF commanders stared in shock at their disabled flagship. "But we will defend our sovereignty." Lord Doom extends an invitation to Japanese government representatives to visit New Latveria and discuss formal diplomatic relations. The message was clear. Military action would be futile and potentially embarrassing. Diplomacy was the only viable option. 3 days later, a Japanese delegation including government officials, Hero Commission representatives, and 2 top-ranked heroes, Endeavor and Hawks, arrived in New Latveria. They were escorted to Castle Doom, where they would meet with the ruler himself. The castle's architecture blended medieval aesthetics with futuristic function. Stone facades concealing advanced technology, gargoyles that doubled as security systems, windows of what appeared to be stained glass, but were actually energy fields displaying programmable imagery. Inside, the delegation was led through corridors where Doombots worked alongside human staff, past laboratories where scientists conducted research beyond current global standards, and into chambers where citizens presented petitions directly to government representatives. "Our governance structure combines efficiency with accessibility," explained their guide, a former pro-hero who had joined Latveria after becoming disillusioned with the commercialization of heroism. Lord Doom's will establishes the framework, but implementation adapts to citizen needs. Finally, they reached the throne room, a vast chamber designed to impress and intimidate. At its far end, seated upon a throne of metal and energy, was Doom himself. Izuku had designed his public appearance carefully. The armor he wore for diplomatic functions was more ornate than his battlesuit, incorporating elements that evoked both authority and advancement. The green cape draped around his shoulders bore the emblem of Latveria, a stylized mask surrounded by a gear-like border. "Representatives of Japan," his modulated voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand in Latveria, a nation founded on principles of progress and merit. State your purpose." The lead diplomat stepped forward, maintaining professional composure despite the intimidating setting. "We come to address what Japan considers an illegal occupation of its sovereign territory and to demand the return of Japanese citizens being held here." "Interesting phrasing," Izuku replied. "You speak of occupation when this island was abandoned by your government after industrial contamination rendered it supposedly uninhabitable. You speak of citizens being held when each person here chose to join Latveria of their own free will." He rose from his throne, his armor gleaming under the chamber's lighting. "Nevertheless, I welcome this opportunity for dialogue. Latveria seeks recognition, not conflict. What followed was a tense negotiation. The Japanese representatives insisted on the return of the island to Japanese control. Doom countered with evidence of legal abandonment and offered instead a treaty of mutual recognition and trade. Endeavor, growing impatient with diplomatic niceties, finally spoke up. You're the one who killed Shigaraki. You've abducted citizens, harbored criminals like Stain, and now you claim to be establishing a legitimate nation? You're a villain hiding behind fancy technology. Izuku turned his impassive mask toward the flame hero. Endeavor, or should I address you as Enji Todoroki? Your perspective is noted, though compromised by your own history of ethical lapses. Before Endeavor could respond, Izuku continued. As for legitimacy, I invite you to speak with Latverian citizens directly. Ask them if they are abducted or if they chose this society over the one you represent. He gestured, and a wall of the chamber became transparent, revealing a public square where Laterians went about their daily lives. Observe a society where worth is determined by contribution rather than quirk lottery, where protection is a right, not a commercial service, where knowledge advances without arbitrary restrictions. Hawks, who had remained silent until now, spoke up, and you maintain control through those robots and surveillance systems we've seen everywhere. Freedom through control, isn't that contradictory? A common misconception, Izuku replied. True freedom requires structure. Without baseline security and equality of opportunity, freedom becomes merely the right of the strong to dominate the weak, precisely the system perpetuated by quirk-based hierarchies. He returned to his throne. But rhetoric aside, let us address practicalities. Latveria exists. Its citizens have chosen this society. Its technology can either benefit Japan through alliance or stand independent. Are you threatening us? The lead diplomat asked. I am stating reality, Izuku replied. Attempt military action, and you will fail, without casualties on your side, but with significant loss of prestige. Accept Latveria's sovereignty and gain a valuable ally with technological capabilities that could benefit your nation immensely. He leaned forward slightly. The tsunami barrier that saved your coastal cities? A minor application of Latverian science. Imagine what could be accomplished through cooperation. The negotiations continued for hours, eventually resulting in a tentative agreement. Japan would not recognize Latverian sovereignty immediately, but would establish a special administrative relationship, pending international consultation. In exchange, Latveria would share certain technologies related to disaster prevention and environmental remediation. As the delegation prepared to depart, Izuku made a final statement. Tell your world that Latveria opens its borders to those who seek a society based on merit rather than accident of birth. Tell them that here, one's value comes from character and contribution, not quirk or pedigree. He rose, his armored form imposing yet somehow dignified. And tell them that Doom's vision is not conquest, but transformation. The old order changes not through destruction alone, but through the presentation of a superior alternative. In the weeks that followed, Latveria became the center of global attention. News organizations attempted to gain access, though Doom carefully controlled which journalists were permitted entry. International organizations debated the legal status of this new nation, with opinions divided between those who saw it as a rogue state and those intrigued by its apparent technological advancements. Most significantly, applications for immigration to Latveria surged. People with villainous quirks who had faced discrimination, scientists whose research had been restricted by ethical committees, individuals disillusioned with quirk-based hierarchies, all sought entry to Doom's domain. Each applicant was carefully screened. Stain, in his role as arbiter, evaluated character and motivation. Technical experts assessed potential contributions. Doom himself reviewed cases of particular interest or concern. Not all were accepted. Those seeking mere escape from consequences, those without sincere commitment to Latveria's principles, those unwilling to contribute, all were rejected. Doom's vision required quality over quantity. Meanwhile, the international community struggled to formulate a unified response. Military options were considered but deemed too risky given Latveria's demonstrated technological superiority. Economic sanctions were proposed, but Latveria's self-sufficiency made such measures largely symbolic, Some nations, seeing potential advantages, began establishing unofficial diplomatic channels. Others, particularly those with strict hero systems similar to Japan's, took harder lines against what they viewed as a dangerous precedent. Within the hero community, reactions were similarly divided. Some heroes saw Doom as merely another villain with grander ambitions. Others, particularly those who had witnessed his actions firsthand, recognized something more complex. All Might, still Japan's symbol of peace, though past his prime, requested a meeting with Izuku, not as adversaries, but as representatives of different paths. After consideration, Doom agreed. Their meeting took place on neutral ground, a small, uninhabited island midway between Japan and Latveria. All Might arrived first, in his muscled form, though visibly thinner than in his heyday. When Doom arrived via teleportation, the contrast between them was striking, the colorful, organic hero versus the armored, technological sovereign. Young Midoriya, All Might began, using Izuku's original name deliberately. Or do you prefer Doom now? I am Doom, Izuku replied simply. Midoriya was a mask worn during my formative years. All Might sighed heavily. I've often wondered if I bear responsibility for your path. When you asked me if you could become a hero without a quirk, and I said no. You spoke the truth as you understood it, Izuku interrupted. Your answer merely confirmed what I already knew, that your society's definition of hero was fundamentally flawed. And your answer is to create your own nation, to operate outside the system rather than reform it from within. Some systems cannot be reformed, Izuku stated. Their flaws are foundational, not incidental. The quirk-based hierarchy, the commercialization of protection, the artificial scarcity of hero licenses, these are not bugs, but features of your society. All Might shook his head. The hero system isn't perfect, but it provides structure, hope, symbols that people can believe in. Symbols, Izuku repeated. Like you? The man who smiles while his body deteriorates from an injury he hides from the public? The living lie? All Might flinched visibly. I know about your injury, Izuku continued, about One for All, about your time limit. I know that the symbol of peace is maintained through careful management of public appearances and media manipulation. How could you possibly? Doom knows all, Izuku stated. But more relevantly, All for One knew much, and he is now a citizen of Latveria. All Might's eyes widened in shock. You've allied with him? Do you have any idea? I have not allied with him. I have neutralized him. His power is contained, his knowledge preserved, his threat eliminated. He serves Latveria now, not his own ambitions. Izuku approached All Might, his armored form moving with surprising grace. You see, that is the fundamental difference in our approaches. You defeat villains and imprison them, leaving the root causes of villainy untouched. I address the underlying systems that create the conditions for conflict. By ruling absolutely, All Might challenged. By creating an alternative, Izuku corrected. Citizens choose Latveria. They submit to its governance because they recognize its superiority to the systems they left behind. He turned to gaze out at the ocean, separating them from Japan. You once told me I couldn't be a hero without a quirk. In a sense, you were right. Within your system, power determines potential. But you failed to consider that the system itself might be what needed changing. All Might was silent for a long moment. What is it you want from this meeting, Doom? To justify your actions? To recruit me? Neither, Izuku replied. I wanted to offer you healing. Healing? Your injury. Latverian medical technology could repair the damage to your respiratory and digestive systems, restore your ability to maintain your powered form indefinitely. All Might stared in disbelief. You could do that? Easily. The question is not capability but consequence. A fully restored symbol of peace would strengthen the very system Latveria demonstrates is obsolete. Izuku's mask revealed nothing of his expression, but his voice softened slightly. Yet I offer it nonetheless, not to the symbol of peace, but to Toshinori Yagi, the man. Your choice will be interesting. All Might looked down at his hands, considering. And what would you ask in return? Nothing, Izuku replied. Consider it a gesture of respect for your sincere, if misguided, dedication to protecting others. The conversation continued, touching on philosophy, ethics, and the future of hero society. Though they reached no agreements, each gained a deeper understanding of the other's perspective. As they prepared to part ways, All Might asked one final question. Is this truly the path you want, young man? To rule rather than serve? To stand apart rather than among? Izuku considered the question carefully before answering. What I want is irrelevant. What humanity needs is a vision beyond the limitations of its current systems. If that requires Doom to stand apart, then so be it. He activated his teleportation device. Consider my offer of healing, Toshinori Yagi, not for what it means to All Might, but for what it means to you. With that, he vanished, leaving the symbol of peace alone, with his thoughts on the small island, a fitting metaphor for the isolation of the path he had chosen decades ago. The meeting with All Might marked a turning point in Doom's strategy. As he teleported back to Castle Doom, Izuku considered the symbol of peace's response to his offer of healing. The hero's hesitation had been telling. Even Japan's greatest champion recognized, if only subconsciously, the fundamental flaws in the system he defended. From his throne room, Izuku surveyed the holographic displays showing Latveria's continued development. In the months since its public revelation, his nation had flourished. The population had grown to nearly 15,000, with new citizens arriving daily. Each was carefully vetted. Each contributed according to their abilities. Each benefited from Latveria's technological advancements. It is time, he announced to his assembled advisors. Latveria has proven its model superior. The experiment has succeeded. Now we scale. Kurogiri tilted his misty head. My lord, are you suggesting expansion beyond our current borders? Not merely expansion, Izuku replied, rising from his throne. Transformation. The world remains trapped in obsolete paradigms, quirk hierarchies, nationalist competitions, resource scarcity maintained through artificial constraints. These systems cannot be reformed. They must be replaced. His armored hand gestured at the global holographic display. And Doom shall replace them. Former hero, Gentle Criminal, now serving as Minister of Information, stepped forward. The international community will resist. They've barely accepted our existence as a sovereign nation. Of course they will resist, Izuku replied. Change is always resisted by those who benefit from the status quo. But resistance without capability is merely delay. He turned to his chief scientist, a brilliant woman who had defected from a government research facility after her quirk enhancement studies were deemed ethically problematic. Is the broadcast system prepared? He asked. She nodded. The satellite network is complete. We can override global communications simultaneously with no nation capable of blocking the signal. Excellent. Izuku's mask revealed nothing of his expression, but satisfaction resonated in his voice. Prepare the demonstration sites. The world requires examples, not merely words. 3 days later, at precisely noon GMT, every communication device on Earth, televisions, radios, phones, computers, simultaneously received the same signal. The familiar masked visage of Doom appeared on screens worldwide. People of Earth, Izuku began, his modulated voice calm yet commanding. I address you not as conqueror, but as liberator. I am Doom. In the United Nations headquarters, emergency sessions paused as the broadcast interrupted their proceedings. In the White House Situation Room, military advisors fell silent. In villain hideouts and hero agencies alike, all attention turned to the global transmission. For generations, humanity has been divided by artificial constructs. Nations, quirk hierarchies, economic systems that maintain scarcity amid potential abundance. These divisions have been maintained by those who benefit from your limitations. The camera pulled back to reveal Izuku standing on a platform overlooking New Latveria, a gleaming metropolis of advanced design that had grown exponentially since its first revelation to the world. Behold Latveria, a nation built not on historical accident or quirk supremacy, but on merit and vision. A society where technology serves all citizens, where protection is a right rather than a commercial service, where human potential is unleashed rather than constrained. The image shifted to show Latverian achievements. Medical facilities where previously incurable conditions were routinely treated, educational systems where children developed according to their individual potentials rather than standardized curricula, energy generation that provided abundant power without environmental cost. This is not utopia, Izuku continued. It is merely rational governance. What Latveria has achieved locally, Earth can achieve globally under Doom's guidance. His armored form returned to the screen, mask impassive, yet somehow conveying absolute conviction. To the leaders of nations, your systems have failed your people. Your economies maintain artificial scarcity to benefit the few. Your hero societies perpetuate quirk-based hierarchies that privilege genetic lottery over merit. Your time is ending. In Pentagon command centers and Kremlin war rooms, military officials began frantic communications, attempting to trace the broadcast source or prepare defensive measures. Doom offers a choice, Izuku stated. Recognize Latveria's governance model as superior and integrate peacefully into the new global order, or demonstrate your inadequacy through futile resistance. He raised a gauntleted hand. For those who require demonstration rather than explanation, observe. The broadcast switched to live feeds from multiple locations worldwide. In the South Pacific, a fleet of military vessels conducting exercises suddenly lost power, their advanced systems disabled by invisible energy pulses. Diplomatic channels to Latveria remain open for those who choose peaceful integration. Those who choose resistance will receive individual attention. With a final statement that would be analyzed by political scientists and military strategists for generations, Doom concluded, "The age of nations is ending. The age of Latveria begins. All roads now lead to doom." The broadcast ended simultaneously across all platforms, leaving a world in chaos. Emergency sessions of government bodies convened globally. Military forces went to high alert. Hero organizations mobilized. In Castle Doom, Izuku removed his helmet, the rare gesture signifying the momentous nature of the occasion. His advisors watched with varying expressions, some concerned about the boldness of the declaration, others exhilarated by its ambition. "The world will resist," Stain commented, his scarred face impassive. "Of course," Izuku replied. "And in their resistance, they will reveal the bankruptcy of their systems. When their militaries fail, their economies collapse, and their heroes fall, the people will see the truth that Doom has proclaimed from the beginning." In a remote military installation in the Ural Mountains, weapon systems activated of their own accord, targeting empty terrain in a precise demonstration of external control. Most dramatically, the deserted island where All Might and Doom had met days earlier suddenly rose from the ocean, levitating 100 feet above the water's surface, held aloft by Latverian technology that defied conventional understanding of physics. "These are not attacks," Izuku clarified as the world watched in shock. "Merely demonstrations. Had Doom wished destruction, these targets would be ash rather than examples." The feed returned to his masked face. "You have 1 month to consider your positions. Diplomatic channels to Latveria remain open for those who choose peaceful integration. Those who choose resistance will receive individual attention." With a final statement that would be analyzed by political scientists and military strategists for generations, Doom concluded, "The age of nations is ending. The age of Latveria begins. All roads now lead to Doom." The broadcast ended simultaneously across all platforms, leaving a world in chaos. Emergency sessions of government bodies convened globally. Military forces went to high alert. Hero organizations mobilized. In Castle Doom, Izuku removed his helmet, the rare gesture signifying the momentous nature of the occasion. His advisors watched with varying expressions, some concerned about the boldness of the declaration, others exhilarated by its ambition. "The world will resist," Stain commented, his scarred face impassive. "Of course," Izuku replied. "And in their resistance, they will reveal the bankruptcy of their systems. When their militaries fail, their economies collapse, and their heroes fall, the people will see the truth that Doom has proclaimed from the beginning." He replaced his helmet, once again becoming the impassive visage of Doom. "The strongest opposition will come first, as it should. We shall meet it with appropriate response." As predicted, the international community's initial reaction was unified defiance. The United Nations Security Council, in an unprecedented unanimous vote, condemned Latveria's threats to global sovereignty and demanded immediate retraction of Doom's claims. Japan, having the most direct experience with Latveria, took a more measured approach. Prime Minister Yoroi Musha, himself a former hero, advocated for diplomatic engagement while simultaneously authorizing the Hero Commission to prepare defense scenarios. "We have witnessed Latverian technology firsthand," he stated in a press conference. "Conventional military response may be insufficient. We must explore all options, including negotiation." This moderate stance earned Japan criticism from allies who viewed it as capitulation. The United States, in particular, took a hardline position, with its president declaring, "America does not negotiate with terrorists or dictators, regardless of their technological advantages. The world stands together against this threat." Doom observed these reactions with clinical detachment. Each response was cataloged, analyzed, and incorporated into his strategic planning. Those nations taking the most aggressive stances were marked for early attention. As the one-month deadline approached, 3 distinct blocs had formed in the international community. A small group of nations, primarily those with strained resources or unstable governance, had opened diplomatic channels with Latveria, exploring potential integration. A larger bloc maintained neutral positions, neither accepting nor explicitly rejecting Doom's declaration. The largest group, led by traditional world powers, stood in open defiance. On the final day of the deadline, Doom addressed his Latvian citizens in a rare public assembly. "Today marks the beginning of global transformation," he declared from a balcony overlooking the central plaza of New Latveria. "Some nations have recognized the inevitability of progress and chosen peaceful integration. Others cling to obsolete paradigms and must be shown the cost of their obstinance." The assembled citizens, many former outcasts who had found purpose and protection in Latveria, cheered their ruler's words. They had experienced the benefits of Doom's governance firsthand and believed in his vision of global transformation. "Latveria does not seek destruction," Izuku continued. "Doom creates rather than annihilates, yet those who threaten our vision must be answered definitively." He raised his armored hands, and the massive screens surrounding the plaza activated, showing tactical displays of global positions. "Tomorrow, the world changes." Not through random violence or territorial conquest, but through precise demonstration of superior vision. Remember that each action taken, however severe, serves the ultimate purpose, a unified Earth under rational governance. As his citizens voiced their support, Doom returned to his command center within Castle Doom. There, his military advisors, a combination of former tactical heroes, reformed villains with strategic minds, and brilliant coordinators, awaited final instructions. "The primary demonstration target has been selected," Izuku stated, highlighting a location on the global display. "The North Korean military regime has not only rejected our diplomatic overtures, but has threatened preemptive nuclear strikes against Latveria." The advisors nodded grimly. North Korea's isolated regime had indeed made the most aggressive threats, apparently believing their nuclear arsenal provided leverage. "This response must demonstrate 3 principles," Izuku continued. First, that no current weapon system can threaten Latveria. Second, that resistance results in precise consequences. Third, that Doom's governance improves rather than merely conquers. The operational details were refined throughout the night. By morning, everything was prepared for what would become known as the first demonstration, the opening act in Doom's global transformation. At dawn Korean time, Latvian assets moved into position. Not massive military forces as most analysts had predicted, but a single figure, Doom himself. Accompanied by a squadron of advanced Doombots, international monitoring systems detected the approach too late. By the time North Korean air defenses activated, Doom had already passed through their coverage, his advanced stealth technology rendering conventional detection methods useless. He landed directly in the central square of Pyongyang, his armored form descending from the sky with controlled grace. The Doombots positioned themselves strategically throughout the capital, their presence triggering immediate military response. North Korean forces converged on the central square, tanks and infantry surrounding the armored figure who stood motionless, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons aimed at him from all directions. When the Supreme Leader's security forces opened fire, the world witnessed the first direct demonstration of Latvian defensive capabilities. Bullets, shells, and even directed energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against Doom's personal force field. Not a single projectile came within feet of his armored form. After allowing this demonstration of the regime's impotence, Izuku raised his hand. A pulse of energy expanded outward, disabling every weapon within a half-mile radius. Soldiers found their firearms inoperative, tanks and artillery pieces rendered useless by targeted electromagnetic disruption. "Your resistance is noted," Doom's amplified voice echoed across the square, "and now answered. What followed was not the massacre many had feared, but something far more strategic. The Doombots activated simultaneously across the capital, targeting specific installations, not population centers, but command facilities, weapon depots, and communications hubs. Within an hour, North Korea's military command structure had been decapitated without a single civilian casualty. The nuclear facilities that had been the regime's primary leverage were neutralized by specialized Latvian technology that rendered the fissile material inert without radiation release as international observers watched via satellite imagery, unable to believe the precision of the operation. Doom addressed the North Korean people directly, overriding all remaining communication systems. People of North Korea, your military regime has fallen, not to replace one oppressor with another, but to integrate you into a global governance model that values human potential over political control. Latvian representatives are deploying throughout your nation to establish provisional administration. Your basic needs will be addressed immediately. Your potential will be unleashed rather than constrained. Within days, the world witnessed something few had thought possible: the rapid transformation of one of Earth's most isolated and oppressive regimes. Latvian medical teams treated long-neglected health conditions. Agricultural specialists implemented advanced farming techniques that promised to end the food shortages that had plagued the country for generations. Not through conventional deployment, but via Kurogiri's expanded warp network, supplemented by teleportation technology that Doom had refined from his research into dimensional boundaries. The Russian hero community, comprising some of the world's most powerful quirk users, mobilized to engage these invaders. What followed was not the prolonged conflict many had expected, but a series of precise neutralizations. Doom had studied each Russian hero in detail. Their quirks, their techniques, their psychological profiles, each was countered with technology specifically designed to nullify their particular abilities. Heroes with elemental quirks found their powers redirected or absorbed. Those with physical enhancements encountered force fields calibrated to their specific strength thresholds. Psychological quirks were blocked by neural inhibitors deployed through the atmosphere itself. At the center of the Moscow defense stood Russia's #1 hero, Tundra, a powerful ice manipulator capable of freezing entire city blocks. As Latvian forces approached the Kremlin, he prepared his ultimate technique, intending to create an impenetrable ice fortress around the seat of government. Before he could complete the technique, a single figure appeared before him, Doom himself, teleporting directly into the confrontation. Mikhail Sokolov, Izuku addressed the hero by his civilian name. Your quirk, Absolute Zero, allows you to reduce molecular motion in your vicinity, creating ice through atmospheric moisture condensation. Impressive, but fundamentally limited by thermodynamic principles. Tundra unleashed his full power, attempting to flash freeze Doom where he stood. The ice formed, encasing the armored figure in a block of frozen water molecules at temperatures approaching absolute zero. For a moment, it appeared the hero had succeeded where others had failed. Then, the ice block shattered from within, revealing Doom completely unaffected, his armor not even frosted. Your understanding of your own quirk is incomplete, Izuku stated. You manipulate temperature through quirk factor, but temperature is merely an expression of molecular energy states that can be maintained through appropriate application of counter energy. With a gesture, he released a pulse that disrupted Tundra's quirk activation pathways, not permanently, but enough to render him temporarily powerless. Russia's heroes have fought admirably, Doom continued as Latvian forces secured the Kremlin. They have served their nation according to their understanding of duty. They will now serve humanity according to a higher calling. Within 72 hours, the Russian Federation had been fully integrated into what international observers were now calling the Latvian sphere. Like North Korea before it, Russia experienced rapid transformation rather than mere occupation. Corrupt officials were removed from authority regardless of political affiliation. Resource distribution systems were restructured to eliminate the oligarchic control that had dominated the Russian economy. Heroes were offered positions within the new administrative structure based on their abilities and character, with many accepting after witnessing the effectiveness of Latvian governance. Most significantly, The vast natural resources that had been controlled by a small elite were redirected toward public benefit through advanced Latvian extraction and processing technology. Regions that had suffered from underdevelopment for generations saw rapid implementation of infrastructure and services. The international community's response shifted from unified defiance to fragmented panic. If Russia, a nuclear power with one of the world's largest hero communities, could fall within days, what hope did smaller nations have? Several countries immediately opened diplomatic channels, seeking terms for peaceful integration. Others formed defensive alliances, pooling military and hero resources in hopes of presenting more formidable resistance. The United States, leading a coalition of Western powers, implemented what its president called a containment strategy. Massive deployment of military and hero assets to create a defensive perimeter around allied territories. Doom observed these developments with clinical detachment. The pattern was proceeding as anticipated. Initial defiance demonstrated inadequacy of conventional defense and gradual acceptance of inevitability. Each phase reinforced the fundamental message. Resistance was not merely futile but counterproductive, delaying the benefits of integration rather than preventing it. Over the following weeks, Latvian expansion continued through a combination of diplomatic integration and targeted demonstrations. Nations that accepted Latvian governance experienced rapid transformation. Technological upgrades to infrastructure, elimination of corruption through impartial oversight, restructuring of resource distribution to eliminate artificial scarcity. Those that resisted received individualized attention, with Doom personally appearing at strategic locations to neutralize key defense capabilities. In each case, the pattern remained consistent. Precision neutralization of military and hero assets, followed by administrative integration that genuinely improved conditions for the general population. By the third month after his initial declaration, Doom controlled territory comprising approximately 1/3 of Earth's landmass and population. The Latvian sphere stretched from Eastern Europe across Asia, incorporating most of the former Soviet bloc, China, and Southeast Asia. These conquests were not random, but strategically sequenced. Each territory brought specific resources or capabilities into the Latvian system, creating an increasingly self-sufficient network that reduced dependence on remaining independent nations. Throughout this expansion, Doom maintained his fundamental approach: technological superiority rather than mass destruction, precise neutralization rather than indiscriminate force, and genuine improvement of living conditions following integration. This approach proved devastatingly effective against conventional resistance strategies. Military forces trained for territorial defense found themselves neutralized without territorial battle. Heroes accustomed to direct confrontation with villains discovered their quirks countered by technology specifically calibrated to their abilities. Political leaders saw their authority structures dismantled, not through violence but through demonstrations of superior governance. The Western Alliance, centered around the United States and the European Union, maintained its containment posture while frantically developing countermeasures. Research into anti-Latvian technology received unlimited funding. Hero agencies coordinated training, specifically targeting Doom's known capabilities. Intelligence agencies attempted to infiltrate Latvian administrative structures, seeking vulnerabilities. These efforts produced limited results. Latvian technology remained consistently ahead of countermeasure development. Doom's personal capabilities appeared to evolve faster than intelligence could document them. Most concerning to Western strategists, populations within the Latvian sphere showed decreasing resistance and increasing acceptance of the new governance model as tangible benefits materialized in their daily lives. 6 months into what historians would later call the Latvian expansion, Doom turned his attention to a target that would prove particularly significant: Island, the floating technological marvel that served as the world's premier research facility. Unlike previous targets, Island represented not territorial or population value, but concentrated intellectual capital. Its research community included the world's leading scientists across multiple disciplines, developing technologies that, while impressive by conventional standards, remained far behind Latvian capabilities. More importantly to Doom's strategic vision, Island housed one particular mind that had caught his attention through her research publications and technological innovations, Melissa Shield, daughter of the renowned scientist David Shield, and a brilliant engineer in her own right. Her work on support technology for quirk enhancement showed an understanding of energy manipulation principles that approached Latverian insights. Her theoretical papers on neural interface systems demonstrated conceptual leaps that few others in the conventional scientific community had achieved. Most significantly, she had recently published speculative research on dimensional boundary mechanics, a field directly relevant to several of Doom's most advanced technologies, including his teleportation systems and certain power generation methods. This mind deserves closer evaluation, Izuku noted as he reviewed her complete works in his private laboratory. Perhaps the first intellect encountered thus far that approaches useful capacity. The decision to personally oversee Island's integration into the Latverian sphere was unusual. Most territorial acquisitions were now managed by administrative teams following established protocols, with Doom himself intervening only when significant resistance required his direct attention. But Island represented a special case, both for its technological value and for the particular minds it contained. This would not be merely an acquisition, but an evaluation. As Latverian forces approached the floating island, its advanced defense systems activated automatically. Force fields designed to withstand the most powerful quirk attacks formed a protective dome over the entire facility. Security robots deployed to defensive positions. The island's massive engines increased power, preparing for potential emergency relocation. These measures, impressive by conventional standards, proved entirely inadequate against Latverian technology. Doom himself, accompanied by a specialized team of Doombots, simply teleported past the external defenses, materializing directly in the central plaza of the research complex. Security forces responded immediately, surrounding the armored figure and his mechanical accompaniment. Leading them was the island's chief of security, a hero with a technopathic quirk that allowed him to control electronic systems through direct mental interface. Doom, he addressed the armored figure, his voice steady despite the tension evident in his posture. This facility is under international protection. Your presence here violates multiple treaties and will be resisted with all available force. Izuku regarded him impassively. Your dedication is noted. Your capability is insufficient. With a gesture, he released a specialized energy pulse that disrupted the security chief's quirk connection to the island's systems. The man staggered, suddenly cut off from the technological network that extended his consciousness throughout the facility. Your technopathy operates through quantum entanglement between your neural patterns and electronic systems, Izuku explained clinically. An elegant natural ability, but one that can be interrupted through targeted field generation. As the security chief struggled to reestablish his connection, Doom addressed the assembled defenders directly. Island now joins the Latverian sphere. Your research will continue under superior conditions and direction. Your capabilities will be enhanced rather than constrained. Resistance delays this improvement without preventing it. From the research buildings surrounding the plaza, scientists and engineers emerged, drawn by the commotion. Among them was David Shield, the island's founder and still its most prominent researcher despite his advancing age. You can't just take over this facility, Shield stated, stepping forward despite security personnel attempting to hold him back. This is an international research center dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of all humanity. A noble sentiment, inconsistently applied, Izuku replied. Your advancements are licensed to corporations and governments that restrict access based on financial and political considerations. True benefit to humanity requires unrestricted application of knowledge, not commercialized distribution. Before Shield could respond, another figure pushed through the crowd. A young woman with blonde hair and intelligent eyes behind red-framed glasses. Melissa Shield took her place beside her father, her expression more curious than fearful as she studied the armored figure before them. You're not here just to conquer, she said, her analytical mind already processing the situation differently than others. Island doesn't have strategic military value or significant population. You're here for our research. Izuku's attention focused fully on her for the first time. Even through his mask, Melissa could feel the intensity of his assessment. Melissa Shield, he acknowledged. Your observation is correct, if incomplete. Latveria integrates each territory for specific purpose. Island's value lies primarily in its intellectual capital, minds that contribute to humanity's advancement under proper direction. Under your direction, you mean, she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Under optimal direction, Izuku corrected. Your work on neural interface systems and dimensional boundary mechanics shows potential beyond conventional applications. Your mind deserves resources commensurate with its capacity. David Shield moved protectively closer to his daughter. Stay away from her. Your paternal concern is understandable but misplaced, Doom stated. Latveria values intellectual capacity regardless of age, gender, or origin. Your daughter will have opportunities beyond anything your current system provides. As they spoke, Latverian forces completed their takeover of the island's systems. The security network, environmental controls, and research databases all came under Doom's authority with minimal resistance. The defensive force fields that had been designed to keep threats out now served to keep the island's population contained as integration proceeded. Unlike territorial conquests, where large administrative teams implemented transformation protocols, Island's integration followed a more specialized approach. Research continued with minimal interruption, but now under Latverian oversight. Scientists found their projects evaluated not for commercial potential, for contribution to human advancement. Most significantly, resource limitations that had constrained many research initiatives suddenly disappeared. Projects previously deemed economically unfeasible received full support when their potential benefits aligned with Latverian priorities. Throughout this transition, Doom maintained a direct presence on the island, an unusual departure from his typical pattern of delegating administrative functions after initial acquisition. His personal attention focused particularly on the advanced research sectors, where he directly evaluated projects and the minds behind them. Melissa Shield found herself under especially close observation. Her current projects received priority resource allocation, and her research team expanded to include Latverian scientists with expertise in related fields. Her laboratory space tripled in size, filled with equipment beyond even Island's advanced standards. Initially wary of this attention, Melissa maintained professional distance in her interactions with Doom. When he visited her laboratory to review progress, she presented her work with clinical precision, neither seeking approval nor showing defiance. Your application of quantum field theory to neural interface design is innovative, Izuku noted during one such visit, examining her latest prototype. Though your implementation remains constrained by conventional understanding of consciousness parameters. Conventional understanding is what we have available, Melissa replied, adjusting her glasses. Unless you're suggesting consciousness operates beyond currently established neurological models? Not beyond, but across dimensions, not typically incorporated into your scientific paradigm, Doom stated. The mind exists in quantum states that conventional instrumentation cannot detect without appropriate calibration. Instead of dismissing this statement as philosophical speculation, Melissa considered it with genuine scientific curiosity. Do you have empirical evidence for multidimensional consciousness states? I have more than evidence. I have functional technology based on these principles. With a gesture, he activated a small device previously unnoticed on his armor. The laboratory space around them shifted subtly, colors becoming more vivid, patterns more evident, connections between disparate elements suddenly visible. This is a consciousness expansion field, Izuku explained as Melissa gasped at the transformed perception. It temporarily adjusts neural processing to incorporate quantum dimensional awareness. What you're experiencing is not hallucination, but expanded perception of already existing reality layers. Melissa's scientific mind raced to process this experience, immediately considering applications and implications. This could revolutionize everything from medical diagnosis to educational methods, she said, her voice reflecting growing excitement despite her attempts to maintain professional detachment. Indeed, and this represents merely one application of principles your research approaches but has not yet reached. He deactivated the device, returning their perception to normal parameters. Your mind grasps implications quickly. Few others on this island demonstrated similar comprehension when exposed to the same demonstration. This interaction established a pattern that would continue over the following weeks. Doom would introduce Latverian concepts or technologies that extended beyond conventional scientific understanding, and Melissa would analyze them with remarkable speed and insight, often suggesting applications or modifications that even Latverian scientists had not considered. Her initial wariness gradually transformed into intellectual engagement. While she maintained ethical concerns about Latveria's expansion methods, she could not deny the technological and scientific advancement they represented. Each demonstration of Latverian capabilities opened new possibilities in her own research, possibilities that aligned with her fundamental desire to improve human welfare through technology. 3 weeks into I-Island's integration, a pivotal moment occurred. Melissa had been working on adapting Latverian principles to her neural interface system, making remarkable progress but encountering a theoretical barrier she couldn't overcome with available information. After hours of frustrated attempts, she finally approached Doom directly in the central research coordination facility he had established. "I need access to complete theoretical documentation on quantum consciousness interaction," she stated without preamble. "Not the simplified version your scientists provided, but the actual foundation principles. I believe I can solve the adaptive calibration problem, but not without understanding the full framework." The Latverian scientists exchanged glances, surprised by her directness. No one made such demands of Doom. Izuku studied her for a long moment, his mask revealing nothing of his thoughts. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. "Your assessment is correct. Partial information constrains potential solutions." He turned to his advisors. "Grant Dr. Shield complete access to the Consciousness Interaction Codex. No restrictions." One of the scientists started to object. The codex contained fundamental Latverian theoretical frameworks considered too advanced for non-Latverian researchers, but fell silent at Doom's raised hand. "Her mind is capable of propulsation," Izuku stated with finality. "Artificial constraints waste potential. Doom does not waste resources." This decision marked a significant shift in Melissa's status within the Latverian research hierarchy. Complete access to foundational theoretical frameworks placed her effectively on par with Doom's most trusted scientists, a position no other integrated researcher had achieved. With this expanded access, Melissa's work accelerated dramatically. Within days, she had not only solved her initial calibration problem, but extended the solution into applications beyond her original project scope. Her modifications to Latverian consciousness interaction theory suggested refinements that even Doom scientists acknowledged as innovative. During a private review session of these developments, Izuku made an unprecedented statement. "Your contribution has improved Latverian theoretical frameworks. This demonstrates exceptional cognitive capability." Coming from Doom, who typically regarded even his most brilliant scientists as merely competent implementers of his vision, this acknowledgement represented extraordinary recognition. Melissa, focused on the technical implications rather than the unusual praise, responded with characteristic directness. "The improvement comes from interdisciplinary application. Your scientists specialize deeply, but sometimes miss cross-domain implications. My background in support item development creates different perspective vectors." "Precisely," Izuku agreed. "Specialized excellence without integrative perspective limits innovation potential. Your mind operates at both levels simultaneously: specialized technical implementation and comprehensive theoretical integration." He paused, then added something even more unexpected. "This cognitive pattern is rare. Among encountered intellects, only Doom himself demonstrates similar dual-capacity operation." Melissa looked up from her data displays, finally registering the significance of what he was saying. "Are you comparing my intelligence to yours?" "Not equivalence, but similarity in structural operation," Izuku clarified. "The distinction matters. Your technical capabilities remain constrained by conventional education parameters despite exceptional native capacity. However, your cognitive pattern, the way your mind processes and integrates information, demonstrates architectural similarities to Doom's. For perhaps the first time since the Latverian integration began, Melissa found herself genuinely unsure how to respond. This was not merely professional recognition, but something more fundamental, an acknowledgement of intellectual kinship from someone who had previously seemed to regard all other minds as inherently inferior. Before she could formulate a response, Doom continued, "Your potential exceeds this facility's capacity to support optimal development. You will relocate to Latveria Prime for direct involvement in core research initiatives." The statement was delivered not as an invitation, but as a decision already made, typical of Doom's communication style. Yet something in his tone suggested this was not merely administrative reassignment, but personal interest in her continued development. "My father," Melissa began, "will be provided appropriate accommodation and research facilities according to his capabilities," Izuku completed. "Family connections need not be severed for optimal placement." She studied him carefully, trying to discern motivation behind the impassive mask. "Why this special attention? I'm one researcher among many you've encountered during your expansion." "Inefficient resource allocation benefits no one," Doom replied. "Minds of exceptional capacity deserve exceptional development conditions. Doom recognizes potential and optimizes accordingly." There was logic to this explanation, consistent with Latverian governance principles that allocated resources based on demonstrated capability rather than arbitrary factors. Yet Melissa sensed something additional, an interest beyond mere resource optimization. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. "I'll need 3 days to complete current project phase transfer and prepare relocation protocols." "Acceptable," Izuku agreed. "Appropriate transportation and transition support will be arranged." As he turned to leave, Melissa asked one final question. "At Latveria Prime, will I be working with you directly?" Doom paused at the threshold. "Yes," he stated simply, then departed. This brief exchange would prove more significant than either fully recognized at the time. Melissa's transfer to Latveria Prime, the heart of Doom's global operations, would accelerate not only her scientific development, but also a relationship that would reshape the course of the Latverian expansion itself. 3 days later, as Doom's personal transport prepared to depart Island with Melissa and her father aboard, international news agencies reported the fall of another major resistance holdout. The European Union had formally requested integration terms following the neutralization of its unified hero defense force. The Latverian sphere now encompassed nearly 60% of Earth's territory and population. The remaining free nations, primarily in the Americas, Oceania, and parts of Africa, were consolidating their resources for what many viewed as humanity's last stand against Doom's expansion. What none yet realized was that the most significant development in this global transformation wasn't territorial conquest, but the meeting of two exceptional minds, one that had already reshaped the world, and another whose potential was just beginning to be realized. Castle Doom rose from the center of Latveria Prime like a fusion of medieval fortress and futuristic citadel. Its stone facades concealed advanced technology, its towers housed both defensive systems and research facilities, its massive gates welcomed citizens while repelling threats. For Melissa Shield, arriving at this heart of the Latverian Empire represented a profound transition. From the transport's viewing window, she observed the city sprawling below, a marvel of urban design that balanced technological advancement with environmental integration. Parks and green spaces separated districts of gleaming architecture. Transportation systems moved citizens efficiently without the congestion of conventional cities. Energy fields visible as subtle auroras regulated climate conditions to optimal parameters. Impressive implementation of sustainable urban design principles, David Shield commented beside her, his scientific mind momentarily overcoming his concerns about their situation. The atmospheric regulation alone must require computational capacity beyond anything we had on Island. The computational systems are distributed rather than centralized, Melissa replied, recalling information from Latverian technical documentation she had studied. Each building contributes processing capacity to the urban network, creating adaptive resilience against system failures. The transport descended toward a landing platform, extending from one of Castle Doom's mid-level sections. As they touched down, Melissa noticed the platform itself adjusting to the vessel's configuration. adaptive architecture responding to immediate needs rather than remaining in fixed form. They were greeted not by Doom himself, but by a woman in Latvian administrative attire who introduced herself as Minister Chen, formerly a university administrator from Singapore who had joined Latvia during its early expansion. Dr. Shield, Miss Shield, welcome to Latveria Prime, she said with professional courtesy. Your accommodations have been prepared according to specified requirements. Your laboratory spaces await final configuration based on your direct input. Where is Doom? Melissa asked, looking past the minister toward the castle interior. Lord Doom is currently engaged in strategic operations regarding Western Hemisphere integration, Minister Chen replied. He has instructed that you be given complete facility access and resource allocation priority. He will meet with you directly once current operations reach appropriate transition points. David Shield frowned slightly. So we're free to move about this facility? We're not prisoners? The minister's expression showed genuine surprise at the question. Of course you're not prisoners. You are valued Latvian citizens with high contribution potential. Your movements within appropriate security classifications are unrestricted. She gestured toward the entrance. Allow me to show you to your personal quarters first. Then we can proceed to laboratory assignment and configuration. As they followed her into the castle, Melissa observed the seamless integration of historical aesthetic and advanced function. What appeared to be traditional tapestries on stone walls were actually environmental control interfaces and information displays. Lighting adjusted automatically to optimal parameters for current activities. Security was omnipresent but unobtrusive, maintaining safety without creating oppressive atmosphere. Their assigned living quarters occupied a section of the castle's research wing, spacious apartments with panoramic views of the city below. Each detail had been customized based on preferences extracted from Island living records, from temperature settings to furniture configurations. These accommodations exceed typical researcher allocations, Minister Chen noted as they explored the space. Lord Doom personally authorized the specifications. After settling in, they were escorted to the research levels, a vast complex of interconnected laboratories and development facilities occupying multiple floors of the castle. Unlike conventional research institutions where departments operated in isolated silos, the Latvian approach emphasized cross-disciplinary integration. Quantum physics researchers worked alongside biological engineers, material scientists collaborated with energy specialists, all within a unified framework. Your primary laboratory has been allocated here, their guide indicated, leading them to a large facility near the center of the complex, adjacent to Lord Doom's personal research space. This positioning is unusual. The laboratory itself was a scientific marvel, equipped with instrumentation beyond even Island's advanced standards, staffed by a team of Latvian specialists selected for complementary expertise to Melissa's work and configured for maximum productivity according to her documented work patterns. This is incredible, David Shield admitted despite himself, examining a molecular fabrication system that operated at quantum precision levels. Some of this technology shouldn't even be theoretically possible yet. Conventional theoretical frameworks operate within unnecessary constraints, came a familiar modulated voice from the laboratory entrance. Doom stood in the doorway, his armored form somehow both imposing and precisely calibrated to the environment. Despite being engaged in strategic operations as they'd been told, he had apparently made time to personally verify their integration. Your strategic operations concluded successfully? Melissa asked, noting his presence when he should presumably be focused on Western Hemisphere matters. They proceed according to parameters, Izuku replied. The Brazilian resistance has been neutralized with minimal infrastructure damage. South American integration continues on schedule. He entered the laboratory, his attention focused primarily on Melissa rather than her father or the assembled staff. Your laboratory configuration meets requirements? It exceeds any research environment I've previously worked in, she acknowledged, though I'll need time to fully understand the capabilities of some of this equipment. The staff will provide necessary operational guidance, Doom stated. More importantly, you will have direct access to theoretical frameworks underlying these technologies. Understanding precedes optimal utilization. He gestured, and the laboratory's central display activated, showing a complex project structure. Your primary assignment involves neural assignment, neural mechanical interface optimization for next-generation global implementation. Current systems operate at approximately 70% of theoretical efficiency. Your insights from I-Island research suggest potential pathways to increase this significantly. Melissa approached the display, already analyzing the project parameters. This is for the global communication network you're implementing across integrated territories. Correct. The network will eventually provide all citizens with direct information access calibrated to individual cognitive parameters. Current limitations in neural adaptation create inefficiencies that reduce effectiveness for certain cognitive architecture types. As they discussed technical details, David Shield observed the interaction with growing concern. The ease with which his daughter engaged with Doom, the intellectual rapport evident in their exchange, the way her initial wariness had transformed into professional engagement, all suggested a relationship developing beyond mere researcher and administrator. After reviewing project specifications, Doom turned to address David directly for the first time. Dr. Shield, your expertise in support item miniaturization remains valuable. A secondary laboratory has been prepared for your work on portable medical diagnostic systems. Your contribution will improve field implementation of Latverian healthcare protocols. And if I choose not to contribute? David asked, his tone carefully neutral despite the challenging question. Then you choose to waste potential, Izuku replied matter-of-factly. Latveria does not compel contribution through force. It creates optimal conditions for contribution and allows rational self-interest to operate. Those who choose not to contribute receive standard citizen benefits but forego the enhanced resources and recognition that come with active participation. He turned back to Melissa. Once you've completed initial facility orientation, we will conduct a detailed review of your theoretical modifications to consciousness interaction principles. Your I-Island work suggested innovations worth further development. With that, he departed, leaving the Shields to continue their orientation with the laboratory staff. As the day progressed, Melissa immersed herself in understanding the advanced systems now at her disposal, quickly establishing working relationships with the Latverian specialists assigned to her team. David, meanwhile, maintained a more reserved approach, engaging professionally but without his daughter's evident enthusiasm. When they finally returned to their quarters that evening, he expressed his concerns directly. Melissa, I'm worried about how quickly you're adapting to all this, he gestured broadly, indicating not just their immediate surroundings, but the entire Latverian situation. This man has conquered half the world through force, and you're collaborating with him as if he's just another research director. Melissa considered her response carefully. Dad, I understand your concerns, but you've seen what I've seen. The technological advancement, the resource allocation efficiency, the elimination of artificial scarcity. Whatever methods Doom has used for expansion, the results for integrated populations are objectively better than what existed before. That doesn't justify the means, David countered. Forcing nations to submit through superior firepower isn't right, regardless of what improvements follow. Is it force when the alternative is freely offered? Melissa asked. Every territory had the option of peaceful integration. Those that chose resistance did so to maintain power structures that benefited elites at the expense of general populations. She sat beside her father, taking his hand. I'm not blind to the ethical complications, but I'm also not willing to reject the opportunity to contribute to genuinely beneficial advancements because I disagree with some implementation methods. David studied his daughter's face, recognizing the determination he'd seen since she was a child tackling complex engineering problems. Just be careful. Don't lose your own ethical framework while working within his. I won't, she promised. But I also won't refuse to see the potential good because it comes from a source with complicated methods. The following weeks established a new routine for Melissa. Her days were filled with intensive research, working with her Latverian team to advance the neural interface project. The work was challenging even for her exceptional intellect, pushing boundaries of what she had previously considered theoretically possible. Most significantly, she began having regular direct contact with Doom himself. Unlike his interactions with other researchers, which typically involved brief reviews and directive adjustments, his sessions with Melissa often extended into detailed theoretical discussions that ranged far beyond the immediate project parameters. During one such session, 3 weeks after her arrival, a particularly interesting exchange occurred. They had been discussing quantum entanglement principles as applied to neural network synchronization when Melissa proposed an approach that contradicted established Latverian methodology. The standard protocol applies synchronization fields uniformly across neural clusters, she explained, adjusting the holographic model floating between them. But human brains aren't uniform. If we instead calibrate field strength according to regional neural density, we could reduce energy requirements by approximately 30%, while increasing effectiveness for diverse neural architectures. Izuku studied the model, his masked face unreadable as always. After a moment of consideration, he responded not with dismissal, as might have been expected given Latveria's technological superiority, but with thoughtful engagement. Your approach has merit, though it introduces calibration complexity that current field generators cannot accommodate. He adjusted the model further, incorporating elements Melissa hadn't considered. However, if implemented through adaptive resonance rather than static field generation, the calibration could self-adjust according to individual neural topology. Melissa immediately grasped the implication. That would require fundamental redesign of the generator architecture. Yes, the current design is efficient but suboptimal for your proposed approach. Without hesitation, Melissa began sketching modifications to the generator design, her mind rapidly integrating the new concept with existing parameters. If we reconfigure the quantum core to operate on variable frequencies rather than fixed output, they worked together for hours, developing a completely new approach to neural interface technology. What began as a suggested optimization evolved into a fundamental redesign that promised significantly improved performance across all metrics. When they finally completed the theoretical framework, Izuku made an unprecedented statement. This design exceeds current Latverian standards. Your contribution has substantively improved our technology rather than merely implementing established principles. Coming from Doom, who typically regarded even the most advanced Earth technology as primitive compared to Latverian standards, this represented extraordinary recognition. It was collaborative development, Melissa noted, though she couldn't entirely suppress a sense of satisfaction at the acknowledgement. Your adaptive resonance insight was the key breakthrough. The initial conceptual shift came from your challenge to established methodology, Izuku countered. Most researchers accept Latverian frameworks as optimal without questioning fundamental assumptions. Your willingness to propose alternative approaches demonstrates exceptional cognitive independence. He studied her for a moment, then added, "This quality is rare and valuable. It suggests capacity for true innovation, rather than mere implementation." As their work continued over subsequent weeks, a pattern emerged. Melissa increasingly participated not just in implementing Latverian technology, but in advancing it. Her insights, combining conventional scientific training with remarkable intuitive leaps, repeatedly introduced improvements to established systems. Doom's recognition of her contributions evolved from professional acknowledgement to something approaching intellectual respect, a status he granted to virtually no one else. Their working sessions became longer and more comprehensive, often extending beyond immediate project parameters to explore theoretical concepts with broader implications. David Shield observed this developing relationship with mixed emotions. On one hand, he could not deny his daughter's evident intellectual fulfillment and the objective value of the work she was doing. On the other, he remained concerned about her increasing alignment with Doom's vision and methods. 2 months after their arrival in Latveria Prime, a significant development accelerated this trajectory. Western Hemisphere resistance had consolidated around the United States, whose military and hero communities maintained the most coherent opposition to Latverian expansion. Intelligence indicated they were developing potential countermeasures to Latverian technology, focusing particularly on disrupting the neural interface systems that coordinated Doom's global operations, during an emergency strategic session, Latverian intelligence officials presented their assessment of the American countermeasure development. Their approach targets quantum field generators using specialized EMP pulses calibrated to our operational frequencies, the chief intelligence officer explained. If successfully deployed, it could temporarily disrupt communication across integrated territories. The attempt demonstrates fundamental misunderstanding of our technology, Doom stated. However, even temporary disruption creates unnecessary inefficiency. He turned to his assembled advisors. Recommendations for countermeasure implementation? Various proposals were offered, strengthening existing field generators, deploying backup systems with different frequency patterns, accelerating the neutralization timeline for American territory. None fully addressed the core vulnerability. Melissa, who had been included in the session due to her work on the Neural Interface project, listened to these proposals with growing concern. Each suggested solution treated the symptom rather than the underlying problem. Finally, she spoke up. We're approaching this incorrectly. The vulnerability isn't in our field generators or deployment protocols. It's in our reliance on fixed quantum states for entanglement maintenance. The room fell silent as all attention turned to her. This was not merely a technical suggestion, but a challenge to fundamental Latverian technological principles. Explain, Izuku directed, his tone neutral but attentive. Our current system maintains entanglement through quantum state fixing, essentially locking particles into predetermined relationship patterns. This is efficient, but creates vulnerability to targeted disruption. She activated the central display, quickly sketching an alternative approach. If we instead implement quantum state fluidity, allowing entangled particles to continuously shift states within defined parameters, no external pulse could maintain disruption effect for more than microseconds. The Latverian science advisors exchanged glances, clearly struggling with the implications of her proposal. Such an approach would require complete redesign of our entire global network architecture, one objected. The implementation timeline would extend months beyond current projections, and would render American countermeasures entirely ineffective, regardless of their development timeline, Melissa countered. It's not just a defensive measure, but a fundamental advancement that eliminates an entire category of potential vulnerabilities. Doom studied her proposal in silence, his masked face revealing nothing of his thoughts. The room remained tense, other advisors reluctant to speak as they awaited his assessment. Finally, he rendered judgment. Dr. Shield's analysis is correct. The proposed solution addresses the fundamental vulnerability rather than symptoms. Implementation will proceed according to her design. The science advisors looked stunned. Doom had just authorized a complete redesign of Latveria's global communication infrastructure based on a proposal from someone who had joined their ranks mere months ago. Preparation for full implementation will begin immediately, Izuku continued. Dr. Shield will directly oversee the transition architecture development. With that decision, Melissa's status within the Latverian hierarchy shifted dramatically. She was no longer merely a valuable researcher, but now held direct authority over a critical infrastructure component of Doom's global operations. As the meeting concluded and others filed out, Doom requested Melissa remain. When they were alone, he addressed her directly. Your proposal demonstrates exceptional insight. Few minds perceive fundamental solution vectors rather than incremental adjustments. The principle seemed obvious once I understood the underlying quantum mechanics involved, Melissa replied, though she recognized the significance of his acknowledgement. Obvious to you, Izuku noted. Not to others with equivalent or superior technical training. This confirms earlier assessment of your cognitive architecture. He paused, then continued with uncharacteristic directness. Your contribution today extends beyond technical resolution. It reveals capability for true partnership in Latveria's evolutionary development. Melissa looked up sharply at this statement. Partnership? Yes. Not merely implementation of established vision, but co-development of the vision itself. He studied her reaction carefully before adding, such partnership capacity has not previously been identified in any encountered intellect. The implication was clear and startling. Doom, who had consistently presented himself as the singular visionary behind Latveria's development, was suggesting Melissa possessed the capacity to function not just as an implementer of his vision, but as a contributor to it. "I'm honored by your assessment," she said carefully, "though I'm not sure I fully understand what such partnership would entail." Complete access to Latvian core development initiatives, direct participation in strategic planning across all domains, authority commensurate with demonstrated capacity. He paused, then added with unprecedented directness, and personal association beyond professional parameters. This last statement hung in the air between them. For perhaps the first time since she had known him, Melissa sensed something approaching uncertainty in Doom's manner, as though even he was not entirely comfortable with the territory into which the conversation had ventured. "Are you?" she began, then recalibrated her approach. "Is this a personal proposition as well as a professional one?" "The distinction between personal and professional is artificial at certain cognitive levels," Izuku replied. "Minds that operate at our capacity integrate all aspects of existence into unified purpose." It was a characteristically Doom-like answer, philosophically precise yet emotionally oblique. But Melissa had worked closely enough with him now to recognize what lay beneath the formal phrasing. "You're suggesting that we could be compatible beyond our research collaboration," she stated directly. "That our minds operate in similar enough patterns to create meaningful connection across multiple dimensions of experience." "Precisely," he acknowledged. "Such compatibility is unprecedented in my experience. It presents opportunities worth exploring." Melissa considered her response carefully. The intellectual connection between them was undeniable. She had never encountered another mind that challenged and complemented her own so effectively. The ethical concerns about his methods remained, but had been tempered by witnessing the genuine improvements Latvian governance brought to integrated populations. Most significantly, she recognized that this moment represented a potential inflection point not just in their personal relationship, but in the trajectory of Latveria itself. Partnership with Doom could provide opportunity to influence the very vision being implemented globally. "I would be interested in exploring such partnership," she finally replied, "though I maintain certain ethical frameworks that may sometimes conflict with established Latvian methodologies. Such independent ethical maintenance is not a liability but an asset," Izuku stated. "Uniform perspective creates vulnerability to collective error. Complementary but distinct ethical frameworks provide necessary corrective potential." This response, acknowledging the value of her potentially divergent perspectives rather than demanding conformity, confirmed for Melissa that the partnership he proposed was genuine rather than merely symbolic. "Then I accept," she said simply. "Excellent." For the first time in their acquaintance, Doom performed an unexpected action. He reached up and removed his helmet, revealing the face of Izuku Midoriya. Not scarred, as historical records of Victor Von Doom had described, but the face of a young man with intense green eyes and an expression of rare vulnerability. "Partnership begins with authentic presentation," he said, his voice now unmodulated. "This face is rarely seen by others." Melissa understood the significance of this gesture. For someone who maintained such careful separation between his armored persona and his physical self, this voluntary unveiling represented extraordinary trust. "Thank you for showing me," she replied, meeting his unveiled gaze directly. This moment marked the beginning of a new phase in both their personal relationship and Latveria's development. Over the following weeks, Melissa's role expanded dramatically. She received access to Latvian core initiatives previously known only to Doom's innermost circle. Her perspective was sought on strategic decisions ranging from technological implementation to governance structure. Most significantly, she began to influence the methods of Latvian expansion itself. Where previous integration had followed strictly efficient protocols with limited consideration for cultural and social transition factors, Melissa introduced modifications that maintained effectiveness while reducing transitional disruption. The Western Hemisphere operations still in progress became the first to implement these modified approaches. Rather than direct neutralization of resistance followed by administrative integration, the new methodology incorporated staged transition protocols that allowed populations to experience benefits before full structural implementation. This approach proved remarkably effective, particularly in Central and South American nations where previous governmental structures had failed to address fundamental needs. By demonstrating Latvian benefits before completing political integration, resistance diminished substantially without requiring direct force application. As their professional partnership deepened, so too did their personal connection. Izuku began spending time with Melissa outside research and strategic contexts, discussing philosophical concepts, sharing experiences from their respective backgrounds, developing understanding that extended beyond intellectual compatibility to genuine emotional resonance. For someone who had maintained such rigid separation between his Doom persona and personal experience, this represented profound change. With Melissa alone, he occasionally removed the armor that had become virtually synonymous with his identity, allowing himself to exist simply as Izuku rather than as the embodiment of Latvian authority. Melissa, for her part, found herself increasingly aligned with the fundamental vision underlying Latveria, while maintaining her distinct perspective on implementation methods. She saw in Izuku not merely the conquering doom of international perception, but a mind of extraordinary capacity genuinely committed to human advancement, albeit through methods many considered extreme. Their partnership became a subject of careful observation among Latvian leadership. Some viewed it with concern, worried that Melissa's influence might moderate Doom's decisive approach to global integration. Others recognized the benefits already manifesting in improved transition protocols and technological advancements. 6 months after Melissa's arrival in Latveria Prime, as the global integration approached 90% completion, Doom made an unprecedented announcement to his inner council. Latveria requires representation beyond singular embodiment. The shield shall join the throne in global governance symbolism. The formal language barely concealed the personal significance. Doom was declaring Melissa not merely his professional partner, but his equal in Latvian leadership. The reference to shield played on both her surname and her emerging role as the diplomatic counterbalance to Doom's more forceful approach. The council received this announcement with varying reactions, but none dared question it directly. Doom's decisions were final, and increasingly the shield's perspective carried similar weight. This partnership would face its greatest test as Latvian expansion reached its final and most challenging phase, the integration of the United States, the last major power, maintaining organized resistance to Doom's New World Order. The United States represented the final significant holdout against Latvian expansion. With 90% of global territory now integrated into Doom's governance model, American resistance had consolidated into what media termed humanity's last stand. Under this existential pressure, traditionalisms within American society had temporarily dissolved. Government agencies, hero organizations, corporate interests, and even former villain groups united in desperate defense of sovereignty. Resources previously dedicated to internal competition redirected toward developing countermeasures against Latvian technology. Most significantly, the American hero community had reorganized into a unified defense structure unprecedented in its history. Former rivals collaborated on complementary tactics. Training focused specifically on Doom's documented capabilities and Latvian operational patterns. Heroes with quirks deemed potentially effective against specific Latvian technologies received priority resource allocation. From his command center in Castle Doom, Izuku observed these preparations with clinical detachment. Their resistance follows predictable patterns, he noted to the Strategic Council. Coordination has improved, but fundamental approach remains reactive rather than innovative. Melissa, now officially recognized as the Shield of Latveria and co-director of global operations, studied the intelligence reports with more nuanced concern. They're focusing significant resources on hero-based countermeasures rather than conventional military response. That represents adaptive learning from previous integration operations. Yet still fundamentally misaligned with actual vulnerability vectors, Izuku replied. They prepare to counter methods already rendered obsolete by current Latvian capabilities. The Strategic Council, comprising Latveria's most brilliant military minds, reformed villains with exceptional tactical insight, and former heroes who had recognized the superiority of Doom's vision, reviewed the comprehensive integration plan for North America. Traditional approach suggests neutralization of military and hero assets followed by administrative restructuring, the chief strategic advisor stated. However, American territory presents unique challenges due to geographical scale, resource distribution, and cultural resistance factors. Melissa activated the central display, highlighting an alternative approach she had been developing. I propose modification to standard integration protocol. Rather than direct confrontation with consolidated resistance, we implement targeted demonstration of Latvian benefits while systematically reducing resistance capability through indirect means. Her plan outlined a multi-phase approach. First, deploying Latvian medical technology to address health crises in underserved regions. Second, implementing resource distribution systems in areas experiencing economic hardship. Third, demonstrating environmental restoration capabilities in damaged ecosystems, all while gradually neutralizing specific resistance nodes through precision operations rather than overwhelming force. This approach extends integration timeline beyond efficiency parameters, one advisor noted critically, but potentially reduces resistance casualties by approximately 80%, Melissa countered, while increasing post-integration stability by similar margin. The council debated the proposal's merits, with opinions divided between traditional, efficiency-focused approaches and Melissa's more nuanced methodology. Throughout the discussion, Doom remained silent, observing the exchange with careful attention. Finally, he rendered judgment. The Shield's approach demonstrates superior long-term optimization. Implementation will proceed according to her design, with tactical adjustments as circumstances require. This decision represented significant evolution in Latvian methodology, where previous integrations had prioritized speed and efficiency over transitional stability. This new approach balanced immediate effectiveness with long-term sustainability, a direct result of Melissa's influence on Doom's strategic thinking. Implementation began immediately. Latvian medical teams deployed to underserved American communities, bringing treatment capabilities beyond anything previously available. Agricultural enhancement systems established in regions experiencing food insecurity increased production while eliminating environmental impact. Energy technology provided abundant power to areas suffering from infrastructure inadequacy. These benefits were delivered without political demands, presented simply as demonstrations of Latvian capabilities available to all once integration completed. The approach created cognitive dissonance among populations that had been told Doom represented existential threat rather than advancement opportunity. Simultaneously, precision operations targeted specific resistance capabilities. Key communication nodes experienced mysterious failures. Hero training facilities found their power systems unexpectedly offline. Military installations reported critical equipment malfunctions. None of these incidents involved direct confrontation or casualties. They simply demonstrated the vulnerability of resistance infrastructure to Latvian technological intervention, a continuous reminder that opposition continued only at Doom's sufferance rather than due to effective defense. The American government recognized the strategy, but struggled to counter it effectively. Military responses against beneficial Latvian deployments would position authorities against their own citizens' interests. Propaganda efforts to discredit Latvian technology failed when populations experienced its benefits directly. Heroes deployed to protect communities from Latvian medical teams found themselves facing civilian opposition rather than welcoming relief. 3 months into this modified integration approach, the American resistance leadership made a desperate decision: a direct strike against Latveria Prime itself. If conventional defense proved ineffective, perhaps a targeted offensive against Doom personally could disrupt the seemingly inevitable integration. The operation, codenamed Freedom's Vanguard, represented the most ambitious hero deployment in history. A specially selected team comprising America's most powerful quirk users, equipped with the most advanced anti-Latvian technology developed by combined research efforts, would attempt to penetrate Latveria's defenses and neutralize Doom himself. Leading this team was the current American symbol of peace, Titan, a hero with extraordinary strength and durability whose powers approached all mights in his prime. Supporting him were 12 elite heroes, each selected for specific capabilities theoretically effective against Latverian systems. The attack plan utilized what American intelligence believed to be a vulnerability in Latverian sensory networks, a momentary processing gap during atmospheric monitoring cycle shifts. The hero team would deploy during this gap using specialized stealth technology to approach Castle Doom, then implement a multi-phase infiltration strategy, culminating in direct confrontation with Doom himself. What American planners didn't realize was that the perceived vulnerability had been deliberately programmed into Latverian systems, a calculated invitation for precisely this type of desperate operation. Doom had anticipated this response and prepared accordingly. As Freedom's Vanguard launched their operation, deploying from a stealth aircraft at high altitude over Latverian territory, they initially encountered exactly the conditions their intelligence had predicted. Defensive systems appeared not to detect their approach. Automated response protocols remained inactive. The castle's outer perimeter showed no signs of heightened alert. Initial insertion successful, Titan reported via secure communication, proceeding to Phase 2 infiltration points. The teams separated according to plan, approaching Castle Doom from multiple vectors to divide defensive attention once detection occurred. Each carried specialized equipment designed to counter specific Latverian technologies: quantum field disruptors, neural pattern scramblers, energy absorption systems. As they breached the castle's outer defensive perimeter, still encountering no resistance, some team members began expressing concern about the suspicious lack of response. "This doesn't feel right," Nova, a hero with cosmic energy manipulation abilities, communicated to Titan. "Their systems should have detected us by now." "Stay focused on the mission," Titan replied. "If we've genuinely achieved surprise, we need to maximize the advantage." They penetrated deeper into the castle complex, navigating according to intelligence-provided schematics. Each step brought them closer to the central command center, where Doom was believed to coordinate global operations, and where their intelligence suggested he would be personally present. As they approached the final security perimeter, protecting the command center, the trap was sprung. Massive energy fields activated simultaneously throughout the infiltration corridors, isolating team members from each other. Environmental systems, adjusted to specific parameters calibrated to neutralize each hero's particular quirk. Specialized countermeasures deployed against their anti-Latverian equipment, rendering it not merely ineffective, but actively hazardous to its users. In the command center, Izuku and Melissa observed the operation through comprehensive monitoring systems. Each containment field is specifically calibrated to individual quirk parameters, Izuku noted. Neutralization without unnecessary damage. Melissa studied the captured heroes' responses with analytical interest. Their equipment designs show impressive adaptation to limited information about our systems. Some approaches demonstrate genuine innovation despite fundamental misconceptions. Innovative implementation of flawed foundational understanding, Izuku agreed. Characteristic of American technological development patterns. He activated the communications system. Freedom's Vanguard, his modulated voice addressed the trapped heroes. Your infiltration attempt has concluded. You now have opportunity to directly observe Latverian operational principles rather than relying on incomplete intelligence. In their separate containment fields, the heroes reacted with varying combinations of defiance, shock, and grim resignation. Their supposedly surprise attack had been anticipated with such precision that individualized countermeasures had prepared for each team member. Your capture will not stop American resistance, Titan declared, still attempting to break free of the energy field containing him despite its perfect calibration to his strength parameters. Others will continue the fight. And there is no fight, Melissa responded, her voice joining Doom's on the communication system. Only transition to superior governance model. Your mission was permitted to proceed specifically to demonstrate this reality. The hero's surprise at a second voice, particularly one unmodulated and evidently female, was visible in their expressions. American intelligence had documented Doom's shield partner, but most dismissed her as a symbolic figurehead rather than true authority. You will be provided comprehensive access to Latverian operations, Izuku continued. Not as prisoners, but as observers. You will witness directly what your intelligence services have failed to accurately report, the actual function and purpose of our global governance implementation. Over the following days, the captured heroes experienced something entirely different from the imprisonment or interrogation they had expected. Instead, they were escorted, under appropriate security protocols, throughout Latvian facilities, shown actual operations rather than propaganda presentations. They observed the medical research developing treatments for previously incurable conditions, freely distributed without patent restrictions or profit considerations. They witnessed educational systems that identified and developed individual potential regardless of background or resources. They examined resource distribution networks that had eliminated scarcity through efficiency rather than restriction. Most significantly, they were shown the actual results of Latvian integration in previously struggling regions, concrete improvements in quality of life, health outcomes, and individual opportunity that contradicted the narrative of oppressive conquest. Melissa personally conducted many of these observation sessions, answering questions with surprising candor and acknowledging areas where Latvian implementation remained imperfect or in development. This approach, honest assessment rather than perfect presentation, proved more effective than any propaganda could have been. You still took over sovereign nations without their consent, Titan pointed out during one such session. No matter how beneficial the results, the method remains fundamentally coercive. A simplification that ignores historical context, Melissa replied. Each integrated territory had experienced previous sovereignty transitions through colonization, revolution, or other forms of power transfer. The distinction is not in whether governance changed, but whether the change benefited populations or merely redistributed power among elites. She activated a display showing comparative data from pre- and post-integration regions. Judged by results rather than abstract principles, has human welfare improved under Latvian governance compared to previous systems? Has individual potential increased or decreased? Are resources distributed more or less equitably? This evidence-based approach proved disruptive to the heroes' established narrative. They had prepared for confrontation with tyrannical oppression, not rational demonstration of genuine improvement. Their moral certainty began showing cracks as direct observation contradicted foundational assumptions. After 1 week of this carefully structured exposure, Doom himself met with the hero team. Not in a confrontational setting, but in a conference facility where they could engage directly without physical barriers. Your infiltration attempt demonstrated commendable courage and technical adaptation, he acknowledged. These qualities have value in Latvian operational framework, though they were misdirected in this instance. Titan, still functioning as team leader despite their capture, responded with cautious directness. What exactly do you want from us? Why this elaborate demonstration instead of simply neutralizing our team? Because neutralization is inefficient when redirection remains possible, Izuku replied. Your abilities and commitment represent resources worth preserving rather than eliminating. You expect us to join you? Nova asked incredulously. To help you conquer our country? I expect you to make rational assessments based on complete information rather than propagandized narratives, Doom stated. Your country is not being conquered but integrated into a superior governance model, a distinction with significant practical implications. He activated the central display, showing the current state of American integration operations. Latvian medical and resource distribution systems had expanded to cover approximately 30% of U.S. territory, focusing on regions with greatest need. In these areas, public support for integration had increased dramatically as benefits materialized in daily life. Resistance continues primarily among those who benefit from current power distributions rather than among general populations, Izuku noted, a pattern consistent across all integration operations historically. Melissa joined the discussion, adding perspective that complemented Doom's more clinical assessment. We recognize that transition creates legitimate concerns about cultural autonomy and local governance participation. The current integration model incorporates significantly enhanced provisions for these factors compared to earlier operations. She highlighted specific protocols developed for American integration. regional governance councils comprising local representatives, cultural preservation initiatives, educational systems that maintain distinctive regional approaches while upgrading content quality and accessibility. These modifications resulted directly from ongoing evaluation of integration effectiveness, she explained. Latveria evolves its methods based on empirical outcomes rather than ideological rigidity. This presentation, combining Doom's authoritative certainty with Melissa's more nuanced approach, created cognitive tension among the hero team. They had expected to face a monolithic tyrant, not a governance partnership demonstrating evolutionary adaptation and rational assessment. After extensive discussion, Doom presented them with a decision. You will be returned to American territory with complete documentation of actual Latverian operations and integration protocols. What you do with this information is your choice. Continue resistance based on incomplete understanding, or contribute to optimal transition implementation based on accurate assessment. This approach, providing information and choice rather than demanding compliance, contradicted everything the heroes had been told to expect from Doom. It suggested confidence in the superiority of the Latverian model rather than fear of resistance, and respect for individual agency rather than demand for submission. When the hero team was returned to American territory 3 days later, completely unharmed, and carrying comprehensive documentation of Latverian operations, the resistance leadership initially assumed they had been subjected to mind control or memory manipulation. Extensive testing proved otherwise. They were entirely themselves, merely in possession of information that contradicted established resistance narratives. The impact of their report spread through resistance leadership, creating deep divisions between those who maintained absolute opposition regardless of evidence, and those who began questioning whether continued resistance served actual human welfare or merely protected established power structures. This internal fracturing accelerated as Latverian integration benefits continued expanding across American territory. Citizens experiencing direct improvements in healthcare, resource access, and opportunity became increasingly resistant to anti-Latverian messaging from authorities, whose promises had consistently failed to materialize in previous decades. 6 months after the Freedom's Vanguard operation, approximately 60% of American territory had effectively accepted Latverian integration. The remaining resistance concentrated in power centers, Washington, D.C., financial hubs, and military complexes, where those with greatest investment in the previous system maintained desperate opposition. The final phase of American integration demonstrated the full evolution of Latverian methodology under the partnership of Doom and his shield. Rather than direct neutralization of remaining resistance, they implemented a strategic isolation approach, simply establishing a containment perimeter around resistance centers while continuing to expand benefits throughout integrated territories. Let them maintain their illusion of independence within defined parameters, Melissa proposed in the Strategic Council. As surrounding regions experience Latverian benefits, internal pressure will accomplish integration more effectively than external force. This approach proved remarkably effective. Within these isolated zones, resource limitations, internal power struggles, and growing awareness of conditions in integrated territories created precisely the pressure Melissa had predicted. One by one, resistance centers requested integration terms, not through military defeat, but through recognition of inevitability and rational self-interest. The final holdout, Washington, D.C. itself, where the remaining federal government maintained symbolic resistance despite effectively governing only a few square miles, presented the last significant decision point in the American integration operation. Standard protocol would implement direct neutralization at this stage, the Strategic Council's senior advisor noted. Continued resistance despite demonstrated futility represents irrational opposition requiring decisive response. Melissa proposed an alternative approach. Instead of neutralization, offer ceremonial transition. Allow them to maintain certain symbolic continuities while implementing actual functional integration. This addresses psychological resistance factors more effectively than forced capitulation. Izuku considered this proposal carefully. Traditional Latverian efficiency parameters would indeed suggest direct neutralization as optimal approach. Yet the shield's perspective highlighted psychological factors that, while less quantifiable, significantly impacted long-term integration stability. The shield's approach demonstrates superior understanding of human psychological requirements, he finally determined. Implementation will proceed according to her design. This decision led to what historians would later call the dignified transition, a carefully choreographed process through which American governmental structures formally requested Latvian integration while maintaining certain ceremonial functions and symbolic continuities. The American president, in a globally broadcast address, announced, after extensive consultation and in recognition of demonstrated capabilities, the United States will join the global community under Latvian governance coordination. This transition represents not surrender, but evolution toward more effective human advancement systems. With this announcement, the last major resistance to Latvian global integration formally ended. Within 1 year of Doom's initial declaration, Earth had unified under a single governance model, not through complete destruction of previous systems, but through demonstrated superiority and evolutionary integration. In Castle Doom, as they received confirmation of the final integration protocol implementation, Izuku turned to Melissa with an observation that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Your modification to standard methodology proved superior to original design. Integration completion with 30% reduction in transitional disruption represents significant optimization. Our partnership improved the outcome, Melissa replied. Your vision established the fundamental framework. My perspective contributed optimization factors. Neither alone would have achieved equivalent results. This simple exchange represented extraordinary evolution in Doom's operational philosophy. The ruler who had once declared Doom stands alone now acknowledged the superior results achieved through genuine partnership, a development as significant for Earth's future as the global integration itself. As the final resistance formalized its integration, attention turned to the next phase of Doom's vision. Not merely unifying global governance, but implementing the comprehensive advancement protocols that represented the true purpose behind Latvian expansion. The age of fragmentation had ended. The age of unified human advancement, under the guidance of Doom and his shield, had begun. 1 year after the completion of global integration, Earth had transformed beyond what most would have believed possible before Doom's emergence. The unified governance model, with Latveria Prime as its central coordination hub, had implemented systematic advancements across all domains of human activity. Resource distribution systems eliminated artificial scarcity, ensuring all humans received necessities regardless of geographic location or previous economic status. Medical technology previously available only to elites became universally accessible, dramatically improving health outcomes worldwide. Educational frameworks identified and developed individual potential without arbitrary constraints of birth circumstance or regional limitations. Most significantly, the quirk-based hierarchy that had dominated human society for generations underwent fundamental restructuring. Under Latvian governance, quirk factors became merely one form of human capability among many, neither privileged above other forms of contribution, nor discriminated against based on arbitrary categorizations of heroic or villainous applications. From the observation platform atop Castle Doom, Izuku and Melissa surveyed the transformed landscape of human civilization. Holographic displays showed real-time data from all global regions, resource flow patterns, development project implementation, advancement metric tracking. Phase 1 completion metrics exceed initial projections by approximately 15%, Izuku noted, reviewing the comprehensive data. Resource optimization protocols have achieved primary objectives ahead of anticipated timeline. The human element continues demonstrating greater adaptability than projection models anticipated, Melissa added, highlighting population response patterns across previously resistant regions, particularly in domains requiring creativity and innovation rather than merely technical implementation. This observation reflected a fundamental aspect of their complementary partnership. Where Doom's original vision had emphasized technological advancement and resource optimization, Melissa had consistently highlighted human psychological and social factors that influenced implementation effectiveness. The resulting integration of both perspectives had produced results superior to either approach alone. As they reviewed global progress metrics, Izuku activated a private protocol that excluded their conversation from standard recording systems, a rare action that signified matters of particular significance. With global integration objectives achieved, it is appropriate to consider next phase implementation, he stated, removing his helmet in the gesture that, even now, he reserved primarily for private interactions with Melissa, the advancement of human civilization beyond current parameters. Melissa recognized the gravity of this transition. Throughout the integration phase, Doom had focused primarily on establishing unified governance and implementing immediate quality of life improvements. The longer-term vision, the true purpose behind his actions, had remained largely unspecified in public communications. "You're talking about the Ascension protocols," she said, referencing theoretical frameworks they had discussed privately but never formally activated. "Moving humanity beyond its current evolutionary state." "Correct." Izuku interfaced directly with the central system, bringing up classified research data from Latveria's most advanced projects. Humanity's current form represents merely transitional evolution, limited by biological constraints, cognitive processing capacity, and temporal perception boundaries. The display showed research across multiple domains: consciousness transfer, technology, biological enhancement systems, quantum identity preservation, and dimensional boundary transcendence. Projects that extended far beyond conventional scientific understanding into realms that merge technology with what earlier civilizations might have termed mystical or metaphysical. These initiatives require careful implementation sequencing, Izuku continued. Advancement must proceed at rates that maintain cognitive cohesion across population segments. Too rapid transition creates disorientation that reduces optimization potential. Melissa studied the implementation timeline with a careful analysis that complemented Doom's visionary scope. The consciousness expansion field trials in Region 7 show promising results for initial phase deployment, starting with perception enhancement before physical modification reduces adaptation stress by approximately 40%. Their discussion continued for hours, refining the Ascension protocols that would guide humanity's next evolutionary leap. This wasn't merely technological advancement, but fundamental transformation of what it meant to be human, expanding consciousness beyond biological limitations, extending existence beyond single-body constraints, enabling perception and interaction across dimensional boundaries previously inaccessible. What emerged was a carefully structured implementation plan that balanced ambition with sustainability. The initial phase would focus on consciousness expansion, helping humans perceive reality more comprehensively without yet altering their physical forms. This would be followed by gradual biological enhancement, then progressive integration with advanced technological systems, and finally transcendence of conventional dimensional limitations. The timeline extends approximately 50 years for complete implementation, Melissa noted, reviewing the finalized protocol sequence, significantly longer than original Latverian efficiency parameters would suggest. Yet optimal for actual human adaptive capacity, Izuku acknowledged. Rushed transcendence creates fragmented development that undermines fundamental objectives. This exchange highlighted how profoundly their partnership had influenced Doom's approach. Where his original methodology had prioritized efficiency and rapid implementation, integration with Melissa's perspective had introduced nuanced understanding of human developmental requirements, recognizing that optimal advancement sometimes required patience rather than acceleration. As they finalized the protocol design, Izuku raised a consideration that transcended mere implementation strategy. Complete transcendence protocols raise fundamental questions about governance continuity. Current Latverian model requires centralized direction during developmental phases, but post-transcendence humanity may achieve optimization through distributed consciousness networks. This observation touched on a profound question rarely addressed directly: whether Doom's governance would itself become obsolete once humanity achieved the advancement he envisioned. It suggested a perspective few would have attributed to him, that his rule might be transitional rather than eternal. You're suggesting that successfully implemented advancement would eventually render our direct governance unnecessary. Melissa said, recognizing the significance of this consideration, that humanity might graduate beyond needing Doom's direction. Optimal development inevitably generates capability for self-direction, Izuku confirmed, though timeline projections suggest this transition point lies beyond immediate planning parameters. This discussion revealed the true nature of Doom's vision, not mere conquest for power's sake, as his critics had always claimed, but genuine advancement of human potential, even if that advancement ultimately transcended his own governance model. Before implementation of the Ascension protocols could begin, however, a more immediate matter required attention: the formalization of the partnership that had proven so crucial to Latveria's success. Throughout the integration phase, Doom and his shield had functioned as effective co-directors of global operations, but their relationship remained officially unspecified in governance structures. 2 weeks after finalizing the Ascension protocols, Izuku requested Melissa's presence in a private chamber of Castle Doom, rarely accessed by anyone but himself, a space that contained artifacts and technologies from his original transformation from Izuku Midoriya to Doom. When she arrived, she found him without his armor for one of the few times in their acquaintance, dressed instead in formal attire that combined Latverian aesthetic with personal elements reflecting his original Japanese heritage. Your message indicated matters of particular significance, Melissa noted, observing both his unusual appearance and the distinctive environment. Is this related to the Ascension Protocol implementation? Indirectly, Izuku replied, his expression more openly vulnerable than she had ever witnessed. Optimal implementation of next phase operations requires formalization of our operational partnership in ways that transcend mere functional collaboration. He gestured to a display case containing what appeared to be an ancient book, its cover marked with symbols that combined scientific notation with what might be described as mystical sigils. My transformation into Doom began with memories and knowledge from another existence, another universe where Victor von Doom created a nation called Latveria and sought advancement through both science and mystical understanding. This was the most direct reference he had ever made to the origin of his transformation, a subject typically considered beyond discussion even in their private interactions. In that existence, Doom ruled alone, his intellect unmatched, his vision unshared, Izuku continued. This singularity was both strength and fundamental weakness. Without complementary perspective, his advancement path became distorted despite its foundational validity. He turned to face her directly. This reality differs in crucial aspects, most significantly in the identification of a mind capable of true partnership rather than mere implementation of established vision. This difference creates optimization potential beyond original Doom's achievements. Melissa recognized the extraordinary nature of this statement, Doom acknowledging that his current path improved upon the original vision that had inspired his transformation. Such admission of enhanced potential through partnership represented profound evolution in his fundamental self-conception. You've never spoken this directly about your transformation before, she noted, understanding the significance of this openness. Formalization of our partnership requires authentic foundation, Izuku replied, including acknowledgement of developmental origins and evolutionary divergence from initial parameters. He approached her with uncharacteristic hesitation, then presented a small container of distinctive Latverian design. Global integration is complete. Ascension protocols are finalized. What remains is formalization of the partnership that will guide implementation. Opening the container revealed a ring of unprecedented design, constructed from materials that seemed to shift between states as light played across its surface, incorporating elements that resonated with both scientific precision and artistic beauty. This represents not merely personal connection, but functional unification of purpose, Izuku explained, a physical manifestation of partnership that transcends conventional relationship parameters. Melissa understood immediately what he was proposing, not simply marriage in the traditional sense, but formalization of a partnership that would guide humanity's next evolutionary phase, a union of minds and purpose that would shape Earth's future development. You're asking me to become not just your partner in governance, but your partner in life, she said, articulating the dual nature of his proposal, to formalize what has been developing between us throughout the integration phase? Yes. For perhaps the first time in his existence as Doom, Izuku's response was simple and direct, without philosophical qualification or technical elaboration. Will you join me not merely in function, but in formal union? Melissa considered the full implications of this proposal. Their intellectual compatibility was undeniable. Their minds complemented each other in ways neither had experienced with anyone else. Their shared vision for human advancement, while sometimes differing in implementation approach, aligned in fundamental objectives. And the personal connection that had developed between them transcended mere professional respect or shared purpose. Most significantly, their partnership had demonstrably improved outcomes for humanity. Doom's original vision, implemented through Melissa's balanced perspective, had achieved integration with significantly reduced transitional disruption. Their combined approach promised similar optimization for the even more ambitious Ascension protocols. Yes, she finally replied with matching directness. I will join you in formal partnership, both personal and functional. The ceremony that formalized their union took place 1 month later in the central plaza of Latveria Prime, broadcast globally as a significant governance development rather than merely personal event. Citizens throughout the unified Earth witnessed the formal joining of Doom and his shield, a symbolic representation of the balanced approach that would guide humanity's next developmental phase. Izuku appeared in ceremonial armor that maintained the distinctive Doom aesthetic while incorporating elements signifying partnership rather than singular authority. Melissa wore formal attire of Latverian design that complemented his appearance, while maintaining distinctive elements reflecting her independent perspective. The vows they exchanged addressed both personal commitment and governance philosophy, promising not only devotion to each other, but dedication to optimal human advancement through balanced implementation of their shared vision. Two minds in unified purpose, Izuku declared as part of the ceremony. Distinct perspectives in complementary function, Doom and Shield joined in advancement of human potential beyond current limitations. Balanced governance through complementary strengths, Melissa responded. Vision guided by both ambition and compassion. Advancement that honors human nature while transcending its current constraints. The global response to this formalization reflected the transformed perception of Doom's governance over the preceding year. Where initial integration had been met with fear and resistance, the demonstrated benefits of unified governance had shifted public perception toward cautious optimism. The formalization of the partnership that had visibly improved implementation approaches, reinforced confidence in the balance of the unified governance model. Following the ceremony, implementation of the Ascension protocols began with the first phase, consciousness expansion technology, deployed in carefully selected regions to introduce humanity gradually to expanded perception capabilities. These initial deployments focused on helping humans perceive aspects of reality previously beyond sensory capacity. Additional dimensional layers, quantum probability states, consciousness pattern interactions, from their unified position as humanity's guides in this unprecedented evolutionary journey, Doom and his shield, now formally acknowledged as equal partners in both governance and vision, directed the careful implementation of each protocol phase. Their complementary approaches ensured that advancement proceeded at rates that maintained cohesion while steadily moving toward the ultimate objective, human transcendence beyond biological and dimensional limitations. As the first year of Ascension Protocol implementation concluded, preliminary results exceeded even optimized projections. Human adaptability to expanded consciousness states demonstrated approximately 20% greater capacity than anticipated. Integration of advanced perception capabilities into daily function proceeded with minimal disruption. Preparation for subsequent protocol phases advanced ahead of schedule without compromising implementation quality. In their private quarters within Castle Doom, Izuku and Melissa reviewed these results with shared satisfaction. Their formal union had enhanced their already exceptional working relationship, creating even more effective integration of their complementary perspectives. Humanity advances toward its true potential, Izuku observed, studying the comprehensive data displays. not through random evolution or artificial enhancement, but through guided transcendence that preserves essential human qualities while expanding capability beyond biological constraints. The balance is key, Melissa added, highlighting adaptation patterns across diverse population segments. Technical advancement synchronized with psychological development, neither outpacing the other, ensures stable transition rather than disruptive leaps. Their unified vision, Doom's ambitious scope tempered by the Shield's nuanced understanding of human developmental requirements, had created an implementation approach superior to either perspective alone. The resulting advancement proceeded not through forced compliance, but through demonstrated benefit, each phase building naturally upon the previous. The path we've established ensures optimization without sacrificing human essence, Izuku noted, expressing a consideration that would have been uncharacteristic of his earlier methodology. Transcendence that enhances rather than replaces what makes humanity worthy of advancement. This statement, perhaps more than any other, demonstrated how profoundly their partnership had influenced Doom's fundamental approach. The ruler who had once focused primarily on technical advancement and efficiency now incorporated deep consideration of human psychological and spiritual factors, a balance that promised truly optimal rather than merely accelerated development. As they continued reviewing implementation data, Melissa raised a question that addressed long-term governance implications. As humanity advances through these protocols, how will our guidance role evolve? Will the balance between direction and self-determination shift as capabilities expand? Optimal governance adapts to developing capacity, Izuku replied thoughtfully. As consciousness expansion proceeds, participation in developmental direction naturally increases. The final phases may function through distributed guidance rather than centralized implementation. This perspective, acknowledging that advancing humanity would require evolving governance approaches rather than permanent autocratic direction, represented perhaps the most significant evolution in Doom's philosophy. The ruler who had once declared absolute authority now anticipated gradual transition toward more distributed determination as human capability advanced. So in a sense, our ultimate success would transform the very nature of Latverian governance, Melissa observed. Perfect implementation would eventually render aspects of our current approach obsolete. Precisely, Izuku agreed. True optimization includes governance evolution corresponding to developmental advancement. Static authority structures become inefficient as subject capability progresses beyond initial parameters. This exchange captured the essence of their unified vision, not eternal rule for its own sake, but guided advancement toward a humanity capable of self-direction at higher functional levels. Their partnership sought not to maintain power indefinitely, but to elevate human potential to its optimal expression. As implementation of the Ascension protocols continued over subsequent years, this philosophy manifested in governance adaptations that increased participation proportional to demonstrated capability. Regions showing advanced integration of expanded consciousness capabilities received greater self-determination authority. Individuals demonstrating exceptional development gained increased input into implementation direction. The unified Earth under Doom and his shield evolved not toward permanent autocracy, but toward what might be described as guided elevation, a developmental model where authority corresponded to actual advancement rather than arbitrary power structures. 5 years into Ascension protocol implementation, as humanity began transitioning from consciousness expansion to the early phases of biological enhancement, Melissa made an observation that captured the true nature of their unified purpose. We're not creating subjects, but successors. Not establishing permanent rule, but facilitating evolution beyond current limitations. Our legacy won't be an eternal empire, but a transcended humanity. Izuku, reviewing the latest implementation data, nodded in agreement. The ultimate expression of Doom's vision, not dominion over humanity, but elevation of humanity beyond need for dominion. This shared understanding that their governance represented transition rather than destination defined the partnership that guided Earth's unprecedented developmental journey. Together, they led humanity not toward subjugation under eternal rule, but toward transcendence into its next evolutionary phase, a process that would eventually render their guidance unnecessary as humans achieved capabilities beyond current comprehension. The reign of doom, formalized through partnership with his shield, thus became not the end of human independence, but the beginning of human transcendence, a transitional guidance toward a future where humanity would evolve beyond the limitations that had constrained its potential throughout previous history. This was the true conquest, not of territory or power, but of the artificial constraints that had prevented optimal human development. Not domination of current humanity, but elevation toward what humanity could become. Under the balanced guidance of Doom and his shield, Earth advanced not into darkness, but toward unprecedented light, the dawn of a transcended humanity that would eventually extend beyond Earth itself into the greater cosmos that awaited.
Big love to all the legends holding this community together. You guys are the reason we keep going strong. Now let's give it up for the supporters who power this journey. For our pro hero tier, we've got the frontline legend himself, Javon McQuire. For our symbol of peace tier, the unstoppable squad rolling deep, Drift SK8er, Akenyo Himajina, Corey Tokars, Jan, X0 Hope 3656, Devin Black, Rowdy Rich, Bionatarius V, King of the Pirates, Crow, Daniel Sharp, Roberto Ramos Di Cristina, Dasher Games, Joe Bros, Aiden Schmidt, Mason Edwards, Ray Von Crimson River, Dante Alastor, Fable, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, MJ Brown, Omar Cousin, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Assassin 24, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Carlos Terry, Rafael Terran, Kevin Hall. And finally, for our Hope of the Universe tier, the ultimate champion standing tall, James, Juanyen Thompson, Big Fro Pro, Juan, I'm Culver, Colsey. You're all absolute legends. Thank you for keeping the fire alive.
Thanks for watching this deep dive into the legendary Dr. Doom. From his tragic origin in Latveria to becoming one of Marvel's most complex villains, we've explored what makes Victor Von Doom such an enduring and fascinating character. His combination of scientific genius, mystical mastery, and unwavering pride creates a villain unlike any other. If you enjoyed learning about the man behind the metal mask, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Marvel character breakdowns. What other villain would you like to see next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. And remember, in the words of Doom himself, knowledge is the greatest power of all.